Five, four, three. Hi, everybody. Dugroz here with Dugroz Reports. Welcome to my Saturday morning live stream. Today is Saturday, July the 19th, 2025, and I'm reporting live from my house. Good to see each and every one of you on board this morning. Put a comment over there if you can hear me okay. Just want to make sure the audio is working. Had a few glitches this morning. Flying Turtles has arrived, finally live. JC reporting for Dugroz. T. That's creative. I like that. David is ready. I'm ready. Reports. I'm ready. Dimitri anticipating the 543. Very good. Flying Ryan doing his usual Florida year-round yard work. Excellent. No harm in listening while doing yard work, certainly. Tim McDonald says audio good, and I appreciate that, as does Robert and Brian. Very, very good. I did a preemptive modem reset this morning. Now, part of the reason why everything is discombobulated this morning, I'm 15 minutes later than usual, is because we had a tornado warning this morning here in central Iowa where I live, somewhere around 6:22 a.m., and I actually was planning on waking up early and preparing my live stream stuff for a couple reasons. One is I feel like I'm still jet lagged, still getting over the change back to the time zone. Been a little bit sick off and on, so my sleep hasn't been great. Had some family responsibilities last night, a family get-together, extended family. So I didn't get home till about 9:45 and ready to go, and then I was just tired and wanted to go to bed. So I put in minimal work on the live stream. Last night, I was, put in minimal work on the live stream last night under the plan of doing it all this morning. Better move the microphone a little closer to my mouth here because I better not talk quite so loud. I've got throat junk this morning. But then my first half hour was derailed with that tornado warning because it was actually close to our house and I had to go down in the basement, didn't have access to all my technology and stuff. Plus, it just made me groggier than usual. Richard says, wife got approved for the Aeroplan with the 85K sub. Hey, that's awesome. Yes, so preliminary Dugroz data point is Aeroplan is out with an 85K offer for signups. I think you have to spend, someone let me know, is it 4,000 or 5,000 in 3 months to get that? I've had two different people contact me and say they got a mailer sent by Air Canada, even if they were over 524. One person online said they were over 524 and got approved for that. So if it's right for your overall strategy, shoot your shot. See what happens with that. Not a bad idea. And that's a great transition. Thank you, Richard. Today's theme of the day is Aeroplan Caravan, or more specifically, all the things I paid myself back on my recent vacation. Most of you probably know my family went to vacation in Europe a little over a week ago. We got back. Not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before that, the 8th, and went to the United Kingdom, Wales, and England. Hopped across the English Channel, spent some time in Vienna, Austria. So I'll go over all the different ways. Hopefully I can get over this junk. Remind me to not get too excited if you hear me getting all excitable. All the different ways I paid myself back and other things like pay yourself back on that trip. Richard said $4K, $4,000 of spend in 3 months is what the requirement is for the Aeroplan. Gold Homers arrived. Remember, woke up early. JC's question about the intro, is that hand gesture for intentional grounding? LOL, I was wondering. Kind of, sort of. So here's the origin of doing that gesture. So there's a channel that I followed in the past from a content creator named Jake Bro, Broe, who used to do credit card points and miles content. Now he exclusively does Ukrainian war content, as far as I know. But I always thought he had like an interesting introduction. It's like, hi guys, Jake here, or he did a little something, and I thought it was kind of interesting. And then about that same time, I saw a video by a guy who is named Brian Johnson, who does videos about how to succeed on YouTube. And one video, he wore like a big puffy winter glove on one hand. He says, just do something interesting, even if there's no reason behind it. Just do something interesting, and people will remember you. So I kind of took his glove comment thing, Jake Bro's little Jake here, and kind of combine them. Plus, I used to officiate high school football. So, yes, this is the intentional grounding symbol. So, when it first started, it was just kind of like this, but it morphed into the double hand intentional grounding sign. Yes. So, you are correct. It is intentional grounding. There's the origin story. Thank you for asking, JC. Rewards Master says, glad to be here, as is Dad on a mission. And Robert says, hey, where do you use your real-time rewards on the Altitude Reserve? Seemed like Stan uses his for Lyft, but I get 5x there on my Chase Sapphire Preferred plus lots of credits from Delta. Is it hotels? Number one, rental cars. Number two is Ubers and Lyfts. So yes, you are correct about that, Robert. I used some on Lyft on this trip, and I'll get into that in the main event, but it's mostly rental cars. When I need to use rental cars, it's the perfect car rental card. Hey, speaking of that, Robert dropped a $1.99 super sticker. Boom, celebrate, celebrate. Great way to support the channel. Thank you so much. And John R comes in strong and consistent as always with a $2 super chat. Celebrate, celebrate. Reminder, don't get too excited. Celebrate, celebrate. Yeah, when I get talking loud and excited, that's when I start coughing. Dimitri said, I also followed Jake, loved his comment. I did too, back when he did credit card points and miles content. Okay, so every live stream, I start off with Dugroz data points, which is anything around the world of points, miles, cash back, etc. that interests me. Most of it is kind of going around the horn, like what's happening, doctor of credit, frequent miler, random sources. A good portion of it is just personal experiences, credits I got on my card, that kind of stuff. Well, I did take 2 of the orange pills right before I started, so hopefully those will be kicking in and hacking away my cough soon. But this morning, it is 100% personal experience data points. There are no around the horn data points from the world of points and miles this morning. It's all me. It's all things I have personally experienced. And to be more specific, things from my vacation. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into that right about now. Last week on my live stream, I did the first portion of what happened on my family vacation to Europe. And I got through the part where we finished up in England and Wales. And then we ate at a Priority Pass restaurant in the Manchester airport. And we were getting ready to fly across to continental Europe from Manchester, United Kingdom, on to Vienna, Austria, with a brief layover with the Dutch national airline KLM, of course, in Amsterdam. So this picture here is just a look at the airplane we were going to get on. I don't remember if this was at Manchester or if this was at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, one of the two. Flight itself was relatively uneventful. I don't know why I thought this picture was fun. This particular flight attendant was just like very like straight-laced by the book. And then this random guy who decided to turn around and look at me right as I took a picture of him. That was kind of funny. Just another picture of the plane, what it looked like. This was, so I sat in, oh shoot, where did I put that picture? I had a super interesting picture and now I lost it. Did I put it over here in my documents folder, my downloads folder? Sorry, folks. I know this is lame content to just talk about where I put stuff. I should know better. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to find it. I'm so sorry. But if I turned around and showed you the picture behind me, my wife and I sat on the second leg of the flight. My wife and I sat in the last row of premium economy, or not premium economy, but like comfort plus, which was the last exit row, had plenty of leg room. And then my 2 boys sat in the first row of regular economy and directly behind us. And this must have been the first leg. The second leg was three across, six across, three on each side of the aisle. And just by chance, my two teenage boys got seated next to a teenage girl. And I was like, oh, man, come on. They're like, Dad, she doesn't even speak English. I'm like, who cares, man? So I had a picture of them sitting next to this random girl, of course, blocked out their face for privacy and all that. Now I can't find the picture. You'll just have to take my word for it. Xavier celebrating 11 months of membership. Thank you so much, Xavier. And to help celebrate, he drops a $9.99 super chat. Celebrate, not too excited, celebrate. Thank you, Xavier. I really appreciate your patronage. So now's as good a time as any to mention I do have one and only one channel membership level. It's called a Dugroz Die Hard. $3 a month, cancel anytime. Some people get there when a membership is gifted. So that's one way you can support the channel is to gift a membership or two or 20 or whatever. Or you can just make a super chat like Xavier did. And 80% is reinvested into my channel, technology. I'm looking for a new desk, a new monitor at some point. I got a new phone recently, not a super high upgrade, but a little bit of an upgrade. 20% goes to my family budget just because this is like a part-time job. It takes away from my family. It should help support my family at least a little bit. So thank you for feeding the poor, Xavier. I appreciate that. Moving on here. Okay, so that was on the airplane. Next picture here is, it's kind of hard to tell what's happening in this picture. Maybe if I zoom in a little. Oh, that's zooming in too much. So this is my son standing right next to the luggage carousel at the Vienna airport. We didn't get in until about 7 o'clock at night. And why is he standing next to the luggage carousel? Well, KLM lost half of our bags, two of them to be more specific. So we had 4 bags and they lost 2 of them. Now, obviously, this picture was from a different part of the trip. You can't take a picture of something that is lost, but just to help us think about luggage. So that was a big bummer. I will say overall, the Vienna portion of our trip had a little bit of a dampener put on it for a couple reasons. And one of them is them losing our luggage. Now, it was my wife's bag and one of my son's bags. We know enough to know to put a couple changes of clothing in your carry-on bags because that kind of stuff can happen. But still, if it's more than about 6 or 7 hours only having 2 outfits, and it was pretty warm in Vienna, can be a big bummer, and you have to make some accommodations and changes and those kinds of things. At the Vienna airport, KLM's lost luggage is handled by Austrian Airlines. It's one of those things where they're probably part of the same network or something like that. So I had to fill out this form here called a customs declaration for checked baggage, saying that my baggage was lost, the address of the hotel that we would be staying at. And we went up to the counter. I gave my name and my ticket number, and they said, "Oh, yeah, we know where your bags are. They are still in Amsterdam." So somehow they knew enough to know the bags had gotten stuck in Amsterdam. And if I told this story last week, I apologize. I'll tell it again. At the check-in at the Manchester airport, they had these, a kiosk where you walk up and print off your baggage tags. You put them on the bags yourself, which we did. And then you go up to this self-service check-in machine where they lay your bag on a conveyor belt and it rolls forward just a little bit. And then there's like a barcode scanner that's constantly moving around that's supposed to scan the tag. Well, on 2 of the bags, it worked properly. And on the other 2 bags, it didn't. Well, guess which 2 bags got lost? The one where it didn't work properly. Now, even though it's supposed to be self-service, there was a KLM employee running the machine almost. And she said something like, this is a new thing that we just started using. And she had to manually override it. She was frustrated and wearing a skirt and trying to haul bags onto the conveyor belt. Little young lady pulling, huge bags. Ours weren't huge, but some of them were because the thing kept not working. So I think KLM needs to kind of get their technology straightened out because although I can't prove it, my theory is the reason the bags got lost is because that scanner machine wasn't working correctly. So it didn't automatically route them to the next plane in Amsterdam. Someone had to manually route it. It wasn't a real short layover. It was like an hour, which is normally enough. But I guess not long enough in this case. So you might be wondering why I've got why we even bothered checking our bags, because they look like they're carry-on size, and they are. It's because of the weight requirements. So here I wrote on the back of an envelope the weight requirements of different airlines. You'll see American Airlines has none, Delta has none, KLM has a 26-pound weight limit. Lufthansa has 17.6 and Virgin 22. So it was the weight limit that was an issue, not the size of the bag. Now, I never actually saw them enforcing it. Have any of you ever been on a European carrier where they actually enforce the weight limit on a carry-on bag? Don't know. Catching up here, QC Man says, member for 16 months, out and about today, but stopped by to say hi. Awesome. Celebrating 16 months of membership. Thank you so much. QC Man, you must have been one of the very first ones, because I didn't offer memberships until October of 23. So October 24, November, December, January, February, March. Yeah, that'd be a little more than that, but not a lot. QC Man also drops a $1.99 super sticker. Celebrate. Thank you, QC Man. I really appreciate that. By the way, if you haven't already done so, 47 people on board, please click thumbs up. The more people that thumbs up, the more this video is pushed out for more people to see. Flying Ryan asked, did we leverage any lost luggage insurances on cards? Yes, kind of. Spoiler alert, the bags were found eventually. They were not lost. I'll get to that in just a little bit. So we used my wife's Aeroplan card to pay for the taxes and fees on this KLM flight. And they do have 6-hour luggage delay or baggage delay, just like the CSR or CSP does. Same benefit. When I read the terms and conditions, it basically says you have to file a lost luggage claim with the airline first, and then if they reject it, then we will step in. So the way I'm handling that is I need to actually file with the Aeroplan card through Chase soon, because it says you have to file within, I think, 22 days, something like that. It might be 20 days. And we're at day like 15, 16, 17 right now. So I need to file the claim in case KLM doesn't come through, but I did also file for reimbursement through KLM for any items we had to buy. And again, I'll remind me to come back to that later when I talk about when the luggage was found. But I will file a claim through Aeroplan in the event that KLM doesn't cover the whole thing. Good question. Rex Blind has arrived and says, I'll just leave this here, dropping a $1.99 super chat. Celebrate. Thank you, Rex. I really appreciate it. Hey, Tim Thompson, I don't know if you are new to being a Dugroz diehard, but I see the symbol by your name. Looks like you're eating a donut. I love some donuts. Drops a $9.99 super chat. He shoots, he scores. Celebrate. Thank you, Tim. Wow, that's really generous of you. And if we haven't met before, glad to have you on board. Ian's here, says, sorry I'm late. That's okay. Cesar, mi hermano, good to see you. Flying Ryan says, my Virgin flight to London did not enforce carry-on weight, and we were very much over. Philmo says to QC, man, 16 months is weak. LOL, gold morning, Doug. Good morning, Philmo. 20 months. Wow, I guess that's about the maximum. In fact, I remember looking at the list once. Philmo was not the first person to join, but I think he was in the first 5 or 10, definitely. So thank you so much for your 20 months of membership. Celebrate. Thank you so much, Philmo. I really appreciate that. Hey, and 46 people on board. Keep on clicking thumbs up. We'll keep going here. So that was the adventure of lost luggage. So for the next almost 2 business days, we were missing half of our luggage, but we didn't let that slow us down entirely. We stayed at the Hilton Vienna Park in Vienna, Austria. Oh, got the wrong tab up here. This is one of those buildings where not the entire building is the Hilton, so it's kind of hard to show the whole thing, but that's what the entrance looked like as we came in with the Hilton brand on it. Good place, good service, had no problems with the hotel whatsoever. Juan Garcia says, good morning. Good to see you, Juan. Didn't take truckloads of pictures inside, but that's what my 2 kids' beds looked like. We did conjoining rooms, as always. Guaranteed connecting rooms with Hilton is a huge plus. So that's what the 2 twin bed side looked like. Had a king size room over on our side. I was hoping they would give me a free upgrade to the executive lounge floors, but they didn't. We have Hilton Gold, which is lounge level or lounge access when available. Um, you have to be platinum for it to be guaranteed. So I asked at the front desk, hey, just in the spirit of it doesn't hurt to ask, do you have any upgrades? And they said, well, we do have 2 rooms available on the floors that would get you lounge access. Unfortunately, none of them are connecting. So you can either have an upgrade or you can have connecting rooms, but you can't have both. And I just said, hey, thanks for checking. We'll just keep the connecting rooms. Lounge access is cool, but we had free breakfast either way. Speaking of free breakfast, some pictures of the meals. This was a top-notch Hilton breakfast. What do we got up here? We got some Vienna sausages. I mean, we were in Vienna. Pancakes with Nutella or something like that. Some bacon, some eggs. This was probably my son's plate. Of course, donuts, pastries, orange juice, banana, meat, fruit. Yeah, just lots of fresh stuff. This was the one I mentioned last week, was like 38 euro, which would be like $44 per person per day if we didn't have status. This is something I ate, some sort of bread pudding. Didn't love that. A crepe, the cheese. The cheese was good, not Gouda. Potatoes, mushrooms, 2 kinds of sausages, 2 kinds of eggs. That's a man's meal right there. I like that. I like it a lot. JC says rooms look nice. They were nice. And hey, look, Juan Garcia gifts 5 Dugroz reports memberships. That's just as good as a 3 times 5, 50. $15 super chat. Celebrate. Thank you, Juan. I really, really appreciate it. 5 new members. If you got one of those memberships, go ahead and speak up so we know who got it. And donuts, waffles, just all kinds of a thing. JC thinks mushrooms for breakfast should be more of a thing stateside. I sure wish it was. Absolutely. And then I won't go into lots of details because last week I mentioned that I had my most fancy or expensive meal I've ever had in my life. Rack of lamb and some other things. Tiny portions, big price, but it was totally worth it. I think it was $217, including drinks and tips. And it was fancy because we had the forks that you automatically get, and then they brought out extra forks just for the salads and appetizers. So yes, this is the Dugroz Eat segment, Tim. You should be hungry. Thank you for noticing. We only had 2 full days in Vienna. One of the things we did was walk around and just look at art and statues and stuff. Lots of naked people statues over there in Vienna. So very beautiful gardens. The Hilton Vienna Park is called Park because it's right next to a big city park. Kind of like New York has Central Park. It's sort of like Vienna's Central Park equivalent. Not a lot to do there, but if you like walking around looking at statues, that's fun. I stopped by St. Stephen's Cathedral. You can't see the spire there, but that's just an old cathedral, probably from the 1300s or something along those lines. One of my more favorite memories was we stopped just at a random ice cream store, and they speak German in Austria. I don't speak much German. Ach, ich habe ihn dort drüben gesehen. That's the one line I know in German. But with a combination of the cashier speaking a little bit of English and lots of pointing at things, we got it figured out and we got ice cream. I've got my son's faces blocked out because normally I try to be careful with their identity and showing them on the internet. Normally I try to ask ahead if I use their picture, and if I didn't have time to ask their permission, I'll block it out. Interesting observation about both the United Kingdom and Austria is their relationship with smoking. So as progressive as they are with some things like public transportation, probably socialized medicine, although I didn't look into it, being a big modern city and all that, compared to the United States, they have a very what I would call old-fashioned view on smoking. Whereas at least here in Iowa, we've had the Clean Air Act in effect for 20 years where you can't smoke in public places with very few exceptions, like maybe casinos, and that's about it. Not so in Europe. They had just out there, like any restaurant or cafe usually would have a combination of indoor seating and outdoor seating. And if you sit outdoor, there's ashtrays at literally every single table. You can smoke as much as you want. They even had cigarette vending machines. I haven't seen a cigarette vending machine since the Sirloin Stockade in Ottumwa, Iowa in the early 80s. I'm pretty sure cigarette vending machines were banned in the States in like the late 80s or early 90s, but not in Austria. They love to smoke there. So you can just walk through clouds of smoke. So that was kind of the one downside where I'm like, really, Austria? Come on. Let's see. One asks thoughts on imminent Citi Strata Elite launch. I've read the rumors and they're only rumors, but it sounds like it's going to be pretty lame. It's like you get 6x on dining, but only on Friday and Saturday nights or something like that. Everything else is all portal related credits or dumb credits applied to very specific vendors. If they don't have like a broad based travel credit like the $300 like the CSR does or the Altitude Reserve, I'm probably not interested. The Amex Gold gives 4x MR points on this episode. That's right, Rex. Maybe if I'm going to say that, I should put some food back on the screen instead of a cigarette machine. There, much better. Yeah. Go to a restaurant, order donuts, which you can definitely do. get 4x. Jake C says people love to smoke in the old world. Ha ha. A Greek breakfast is a coffee and 2 cigarettes. I had not heard that particular saying before. Thank you. Greek breakfast. FC drops a $5 super sticker. Well, $4.99. Celebrate, celebrate. Wow, I'm getting lots of support this morning. Thank you so much, guys. I really, really appreciate your patronage. That makes a ton of difference. I haven't kept track, but I bet I'm over like $25 this morning. See, 2, 4, 10. That's 14. 2 more, 15, 16, 17, 18. Add 10, 28. Yeah, somewhere around $32 so far. Thank you, everyone. Wow, I really appreciate it. Gold Homer says, I was in rural Pennsylvania 5 years ago and they had cigarette vending machines outside bars and gas stations. Okay, it must just be a state by state thing then, not a nationwide ban on cigarette vending machines. But I haven't seen one in America since I was a kid. Matt's here. How you doing, Matt? Says Strata Elite is Strata failure. Sure looks that way. Anybody checked the city website this morning to see if it launched yet? Frequent Miler said the rumor was this weekend. Now, as Matt would undoubtedly point out, this weekend probably means somewhere around about 8 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. Rewards Master says, as a city prestige holder, I'm crying over this Strata Elite. Yeah, because the rumor is they're going to forcibly product change you also. Source King says, I'm sure you didn't see cigarette vending machines when you went to Sweden. I did not. In fact, I only saw them in Austria. I don't think I saw any in the United Kingdom, but someone can correct me. Ian says 6 out of 6 smart anti-churning move. Most services run out of funds by Friday or Saturday. I'm not sure what you mean by that. 6. Oh, okay. You're talking about the new Citi Strata thing, like on Fridays and Saturdays between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. is when you get that city dining. And I'm not sure what you would churn with dining. You must know something I don't know. If you want to share, you can, but don't feel obligated. 50 people on board. Please click thumbs up again. Matt says it is not yet launched. QC Man laughed at Filmo's insult of 16 versus 20 months of membership. Juan says to Matt, I know you hate the city custom cash, but Garsh, I hope they don't kill it and switch to the city strata. That time will tell. Flying Ryan says the Riverside Casino has cigarette vending. Last I was there. That's in the state of Iowa, over in the Iowa City area. JC says Matt is the Skip Bayless when it comes to city, LOL. And Robert says this city move means I can finally my premiere. Done with city. I'm assuming you mean cancel your premiere. Done with city except for the AA card. Yeah, I've only got custom caches at this point. Well, custom caches and the Strata when I was forcibly changed away from the Rewards Plus, or will be very soon. Gold Homer says, I'd love to know how to churn and maximize the dining multiplier. That's what I'm thinking too. Let's see. Matt thinks you will be forced off the custom cash. And Robert says churning dining. That does conjure up some undesirable thoughts. I will join you there, certainly, Robert. This picture is funny for one reason and serious for one reason. Funny because this is the cold and flu section at Mueller's. Mueller's is a big drugstore, kind of like a CVS on steroids in Vienna, Austria. It's 2 floors, and the cough and cold section is called Gesundheit, which I just thought is something you say after people sneeze, but apparently it actually means something along the lines of sneezing in German. So funny for that reason, but a little on the bummer side because another thing that put a dampener on the Vienna part of our vacation was with about a day and a half left to go, I actually started getting sick on our trip. It wasn't like a bad sickness. It was just kind of like what I have now, kind of stuffy, a little bit of coughing, a little bit of sniffling. Now, on the day we actually flew home across the Atlantic Ocean, one of my boys, like while on the plane, started to feel crummy and literally slept almost the entire time. Gesundheit means health in Deutsch. Oh, interesting. I did not know that. Thank you for filling me in. So, like when someone sneezes and you say Gesundheit, you're wishing them good health. Does that sound right? The more you know. Thanks so much, Robert. Appreciate it. The big activity we did during our time in Austria was going to I'll probably mispronounce this, the Schönbrunn Palace, which is Schloss Schönbrunn in German. And that was basically like the royal palace of the Habsburg line, who were the rulers of Austria, basically right up until partway through World War I. And this was kind of their summer vacation home. Vacation home, gigantic palace with hundreds of rooms. We took a tour of that with a guide, and I'll talk about that a little bit during the main event. This is the inside of one of the rooms. You got these giant frescoes on the ceiling, lots of naked people there. And, like 24 karat gold candlesticks, chandeliers, all that kind of stuff. My kids and I have this running joke, like people in the 1700s and 1800s be like, what do we know about the ancient Greeks and Romans? Well, Jim, one thing's for sure. There was a whole lot of nudity going on. They were just walking around naked all the time. So, yeah, people in the 1700s imagining life in ancient Rome was like, they were naked a lot, just walking around with no clothes on. Robert says my Gesundheit theory was correct. And Matt says, the exact same thing. Gesundheit is wishing good health. Flying Ryan says, did I get to any Sound of Music spots? We did not. Now, ironically, my wife loves classical music, and I'm fond of it too. But I mean, I'm like an 8. She's like a 10. And, Vienna's like the classical music capital of the world. We didn't go to any concerts at all. And the main reason was because all the concerts, like the picture I'm seeing, they're formal events. So you're wearing like suits and dresses, and we didn't pack anything like that. So it was like, do we pack a whole separate suitcase just to go to a concert? Nah. Another thing about Vienna that, it's a little bit of a dampener. I'm not saying it was a terrible time. We had a good time, just not as good as Wales or York, England by any means. It was third place by a fair margin. Despite the beautiful buildings and the rich heritage in Vienna, it's just a little trashy. Not as trashy as like, the bad parts of New York City, like the Bronx or over by LaGuardia Airport. But it was like, so you'd have this beautiful building built in the 1700s, and on the gate out front, like stone pillars, and people had spray painted on it. By the way, apparently people in Austria are very proficient in English profanity. And we kept seeing the F word followed by cars, C-A-R-S. So apparently there's a lot of people in Vienna who do not like automobiles. Matt says, Prost is another form of to good health, as cheers in most countries in some form is wishing good health. Thank you. Catch 631 says, I'm running errands, so I'm a little late, but dropped my like and will watch the full stream when I get home. Hey, thanks for clicking like. It must be working. We're up to 54 people. Santé in French, slante in Gaelic, skål in Nordic countries. I didn't know skål was good health. I thought it was just a type of chewing tobacco that you get. I am a big fan of the Gaelic language, even though I don't speak hardly any of it. Wales in Welsh, I believe it looks like Sirmu, but I think it's pronounced Cymru, something like that. Brady says, wow, I thought Vienna was the cleanest city I have seen. I probably misportrayed that, Brady. I apologize. It wasn't trashy in terms of like literal trash. It was the fact that like so many of their beautiful buildings have been defaced. Gesund means healthy. Thanks for chiming in, by the way, Brady. This is one of the statues with, at least some clothing on. There, there it's shown for. Of course, I can't. This is a show that's PG. I can't show, the full nudity ones. Along the lines of what Brady said, now the subway was very clean. This is a picture of one of the subways there in Vienna. And I really liked their subway system for a couple different reasons. One reason is because it was very self-explanatory. I found it actually easier to navigate than the London Underground. The way you pay for it, you can like walk up to a physical machine and buy tickets right before you get on. But the way we did it is you can just download an app that's called like Wine or Wien, Wein, Transit or something like that. The name of Vienna in German is Wine or Wein, just Wein, like Wiener, Weiner. So the Vine Transit app, and you just buy your tickets every time you travel on there, or you can do like a 2-day pass or 3-day pass or a day pass. We only used it 6 times. So I did the math and it was cheaper just to pay for each individual trip. And I'll come back to that a little more in the main event. But that way you don't have to like wait in line or anything. You just get on with your app and honor system. If a conductor comes through and checks your tickets, you just need to be able to show it. Spoiler alert, the entire time, no one ever checked our tickets. So it ended up just being honor system. Matt says, the Welsh throw in 50 to 60 Fs, Ws, and Ds. You read my mind. More on that in the main event. Filmo says, in upstate New York, we say drink up and then jump through a table. I have images of Matt Foley as played by Chris Farley. I am Matt Foley. Skull, says Source King. Matt also says, I enjoy the efficiency of German, where crank is sick, Krankenhaus is literally sick house, hospital, and ambulance is Krankenwagen. I saw a parody video where it was like all the beautiful European languages, and it always saved German for last. And it was like French, ambule, English, ambulance, Spanish, ambulance, German, Krankenwagen. It's of course the guy who yells everything. It's pronounced Veen, not Vine. I apologize. Matt agrees. Hey, lots of Duolingo going on this morning. Flying Ryan says, someone for the first time checked my ticket on the Thames Clipper boat in London. Glad we were honest. Good. Gold Homer asks, is all cheese government cheese in Socialist Vienna? I don't know, but if that's socialism, maybe I'm not opposed to it. Spiken sei Deutschmat. I'm guessing that means, do you speak German? But I don't really know for sure. I apologize. I actually am subscribed to a YouTube channel of some guy, I don't remember his name off the top of my head. Hit me up in the comments after the video's done if you want it. Who basically started recording videos like on his camcorder when he was a young man, and now he's probably in his 60s, and he just travels all over Europe. He speaks perfectly good English, but he's a native of Germany. Source King says, us Swedes were blessed with those extra letters. A with a little circle on top, A with the 2 dots, O with the 2 dots on top. Have you ever seen that commercial on YouTube for Gruns? It's like a gummy that like is full of healthy things. And the lady's like, Gruns. And I want to say, ooh is not a letter in English. Now, if they're doing the entire commercial in whatever language that is, I wouldn't be offended. But if it's an English commercial, use English. Matt says, I speak enough to get by. Same with French, but my Duolingo is obnoxious. Well, you're all ahead of me. I had 2 words in German that really got me a lot of mileage. Hallo and danke, which is hello and thank you. There was one time I walked up to someone and said, hello and prepared to say, is English okay? But they just started rattling off to me in German, like, hello, hello, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I don't speak English, German. Like, oh, English is fine. All right, let's keep going here. Where were we? We talked about the subway. We talked about the naked statues. Again, the subways in Austria, everything was well labeled. Nistroyoplatz. I like the names too. We took the time to walk down to the Danube River because, I mean, how can you be in Vienna and not see the Danube? Do, 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 do. Actually, it was a combination of walking and riding the subway. And this is where things got a little tricky with the subway because it is all on the honor system. It said like you're supposed to pay per trip, but like if you get off of one line and connect to another line, is that 2 trips or 1 trip? So I wasn't really sure. And in our case, it was like we took one line to get to the Danube, walked like 5 blocks, looked at the river for, a half hour or so, and then connected to a different line to come back to the downtown area. So it's like, is that 1 trip or 2? So I just charged on the app as 1 trip. I suppose if I had gotten checked and someone's like, no, you need to do that as 2, I would have just gone in and paid for it a second time. Robert says, every time I try speaking Deutsch to a German, they come back to me in English, so I guess I'm that obvious. Well, however obvious you are, I'm even worse. And then this is just completely random. Your random Bible reference of the day. Right next to the Danube River, there was this tree growing up it was like growing out of the pavement, but it was like 8 feet tall. And it kind of looked like a catalpa tree here in America. I'm not sure what kind it was, but it was hot that day. The sun was really coming down and my wife hadn't gotten her luggage yet. So she was wearing a sweater because it was like all she had available. So I thought of that story at the end of the book of Jonah, where Jonah hides under a tree that had big, thick leaves. And then he is all pissy. So God curses him and the tree withers and he no longer has his tree providing shade. That popped into my head. You know what they have over there in Austria? They have Hofer, which I'm assuming that's Aldi because that sure looks like the Aldi logo. Also on Sundays, every shop in Vienna that is not like a restaurant or a tourist place is closed. So you can't go to the drugstore. You can't go to their equivalent Walmart. You can't go to Aldi on Sundays, which was really obnoxious when your luggage was lost because we were like, well, on Sunday morning, we'll just go buy some clothing and charge that to KLM or the card insurance. Nope, that wasn't an option. More on that later. You want to know where this picture was taken? Take a guess. Clue is it's not something you would normally guess. Here's a Sklo donut Gefalt. Here is a Himbeer donut. We got a Creper donut mit vanilla Füllung. One thing I like about German is you can kind of figure it out. Here's a crepe donut with vanilla filling. You got cheesecake down here. Cheesecake is cheesecake. Any guesses? Dun 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 dun. Yeah, if I zoom on this middle one, this is McCafe. This is a McDonald's. They actually were selling all of these pastries and little goodies there in a McDonald's. I thought that was pretty cool. We didn't have any, but I probably should have. And then another thing at McDonald's, this bench that's kind of in the shape of a wiener. I mean, it is in Wien. Is a like half sitting, half standing bench at McDonald's. So after you place your order on the kiosk, if you're waiting for them, here, I'll demonstrate. You kind of do one of these where you're not sitting all the way. It's like just kind of like this squat and you kind of rest your butt on that little thing. I thought that's pretty innovative. It's like, I don't want to commit to sitting down, but I don't want to stand either. Goldhomer asks, how are the gluten-free options in Vienna? You either have a good memory or this is a coincidence. My wife is gluten-free, so we always have to keep that in mind. At restaurants, they were really good, except for the very last restaurant we ate at. Most restaurants, both in the UK and in Austria, were like very sensitive about that. So like they either have it very clearly displayed on the menu or they have a whole separate gluten-free menu. In fact, one of the restaurants we ate at in the United Kingdom was a burger joint called Bill's. And my wife said, like, "Can you swap out the regular bun for gluten-free bun on a cheeseburger?" And he was like, "Oh, we have a whole gluten-free menu." Or it was a lady. She said, "We have a whole gluten-free menu." And they brought her whole gluten-free menu without her even bringing it up. So that was really good. The very last restaurant we ate at, I'll have a picture of it later, was like this little, like, must have been family-owned place, and they didn't have like a gluten-free menu. Their menu had German, then they would translate it into English underneath. But it's sort of like when you see like all your base are belong to us, like the really bad translations. So like it would say something like, you know, if it was a hot dog with sauerkraut on it and a bun with sesame seeds, it would say like, here is a pig dog with the topping and a bun which has many of good seed, or something like that. So that restaurant didn't have a gluten-free menu, but if in doubt, just get a big old piece of meat. So I think she just got like some sort of chicken breast item and just took the bread off and ate that. Okay, so the Saturday we did the walk around the park, and we did the tour of the Sch&ouml Palace. On Sunday, we walked to the Danube River partway, rode the train part of the way, and then came back to our hotel. And after we'd gotten back to our hotel, we'd been there like an hour and a half. We were just doing some chilling, some relaxing in the afternoon, and a knock on our door. And by the time I got to the door, the person had left. But you know what showed up? A suitcase. And it was my wife's suitcase, but it was only one. My son's suitcase wasn't yet delivered. So that increased wifely happiness by like 50% when her suitcase showed up. So then we were able to do more stuff with her wearing cooler clothing instead of what she had on the plane. So that was very, very nice and made all of us happier. Interestingly, and then we went out, did a couple activities. When we got back that night, Sunday night, my son's suitcase had been delivered. So for some reason, it took, I don't know, if maybe my wife's took the afternoon flight over from Amsterdam, and my son's took the evening flight, or what, but they did end up delivering both of them. So I didn't have to wait for him to come back to America. Didn't have to make a lost luggage claim, just a luggage delay claim. So our flight was in the evening on Friday. So one full 24-hour period to get to Saturday night. I was well past that. And then it was like 1:30 or 2:30 in the afternoon when my wife's bag came. So it was like 36 hours, but since it lapped over two 24-hour periods, I'm hoping I can claim the full $100 per day as needed. It was more than $100 in damages, but less than 200 in terms of things we had to buy to make it right. So we did buy like a couple power adapters that would work with the voltage there in Austria. We bought some face soap that's a specific kind that one of my kids uses. Deodorant was lost, so I had to buy deodorant. Some over-the-counter medication that was delayed, and then some dry cleaning, which I'll come to that during the main event. Rex says, if you ever go to the McDonald's in Germany, get the mini schnitzel. You won't regret it. I should probably know this, but I don't even know what schnitzel is. I've heard of schnitzel and noodle. Why don't somebody explain what schnitzel is for me? Is it like little tiny sausages? So yeah, that was happiness. Then we decided to go bowling. I have one son that really likes bowling, even if we're in a foreign country and we hadn't fit it in yet. I told him we might not get to, but like, hey, we just want to chill. Let's go bowling. On the way there, we had our most challenging subway trip. There was a line that was under construction, so it tried to do a detour, and Google Maps got all confused about that and told us basically to go to a subway station that didn't even exist or couldn't be accessed. But Apple Maps had our backs and showed us an alternate route. But we didn't get to the stop right next to the bowling, so we had to walk a little bit. While walking a couple different times, I saw this sign. Anybody know what this means? It's like, caution, men and women. So if you do speak a little bit of German, you can tell me what this says. You're not allowed to walk down the street together and flirt with each other, or something like that. If anybody knows what that all says, I thought that sign was kind of funny. I actually have a friend who's fluent in German, so I should probably Figure that out. Flying Ryan says a schnitzel is what we here in Iowa call a pork tenderloin. Ooh, I would like that. Thank you, Rex and Flying, for clarifying all of that information. Walked by what I assume is a radio station, but I just thought it was funny. It kind of looks like messy wine, messy wiener. Got to the bowling alley, did some bowling, had a milkshake there. Now, I ordered a milkshake and my son ordered a milkshake, and I was expecting like a McDonald's milkshake, thick, mostly ice cream with a little bit of milk. Apparently, what they think is a milkshake is milk with like 1 tablespoon of ice cream in it, because it was mostly just a glass of milk, but that's okay. Our first dangerous lack of interpretation was in the bathrooms at the bowling alley. The bathrooms were like you walk through one common door and then you split off to either Damen or Herren. And I'm like, I don't know what these mean. But I was like, okay, a nickname for a woman is a dame. So this is probably women. So I went this way and like very slowly, and as I turned the corner, I saw a dude with a beard in there. So I'm like, okay, all right. And my son said he had the exact same panic, but like as he was standing there trying to decide, a guy walked in. So he's like, oh, okay, we're doing good. Farader is bicycle. Back to the previous sign. Okay, I'm wondering if this is something like, hey, idiots, watch out for the bicyclist. Don't just stand in the bike path, moron. Get out of the way. Maybe that's what it means. Next picture. All right, so that was it. Went bowling, came home, went to bed. This is the view out the window. It was rainy the morning we left. Share the correct picture here, Doug. And you can see we didn't have a direct view of the park. We kind of had a diagonal view. But this is looking out our window to the right. There's the city park down here next to Grafenstein Bank. You got some city buildings in the distance there that are very lovely. So yeah, it was a great view. I wish I'd taken it on a day when it wasn't quite so cloudy. This is us getting ready to leave the Hilton there in Vienna with all of our bags. Just so happy that we have all 4 of our luggage items. You can see kind of a picture of the reception area over here. And then we flew on Austrian Airlines from Vienna to Munich, which is a very short flight. It's listed as a 1-hour flight, but it was probably like 30 minutes actually in the air. It felt kind of like flying from Des Moines to Minneapolis. One thing that I thought was funny is in the airport in Vienna, this was contributing to some sort of nonprofit, maybe their equivalent of like the Salvation Army. And it was on a pillar with 4 sides. And one side had a saying in German, the other side had the saying in English. And I think they used the same translation program that the small restaurant did. Today, you don't give money, but make it possible that we can help people in difficult life situations, can stand by them. Oh, okay. I think it's supposed to be more like you're not just giving money, you're giving something to help people's lives be better through the Salvation Army type thing. Fahrender is plural, so it's apparently bicycles. Filmo says, I would watch a show called Dugroz Family Goes Bowling in Vienna. It sounds like an episode of Family Matters to me. Let's see here. Next picture. All right, so then we arrived in Munich, Germany, and we went to the Lufthansa lounge because Austrian Airlines is a code share partner with Lufthansa, and our big flight across the pond was going to be on Lufthansa. Gonna shoot straight with you here, folks. The Lufthansa lounge, there was multiples. There was like one in each concourse. Was really kind of disappointing. So first of all, it wasn't very big. So look at this picture here. This is about half of the entire lounge area. I'm standing like back where there's like 4 or 5 like little stalls where you can use a computer behind me and the check-in area. And that's about it. And then it goes down to the window where you can look out on the tarmac. And then after that, you would turn left or look to the left. And that's it. That's the whole lounge. And it was overcrowded. There was not a single place for a family of 4 to sit together. So what we did was we took a few individual chairs. There was like two next to each other. And then I went off to sit somewhere else. After getting some food, I sat at one of these little half stool, half chair things and ate my Swedish meatballs there at a little counter you could plug in and use your computer. And that chair was uncomfortable. After a little while, somebody got up. So there was a third seat. We went and took that. And then somebody else got up and we went and took that. So over time, we did eventually find seating for four. Luke Johnson always likes it when I do an accent. It makes me laugh. Hopefully everyone understands my bad accents are bad. I'm not actually trying to be fluent in another language. There were only 4 chairs where you could get somewhat of a recline in the whole place, kind of like a sleeping type chair. None of them were open when we came in. And I told you in the last episode, I'm going to call out bad behavior when I see it. So of the 4 chairs, one of them was occupied almost the entire time we were there by this lady who was awake and looking at her phone. The entire last hour, she wasn't even trying to sleep. Now, what do you think? Is that bad behavior? I thought there's truckloads of people in the lounge. There's lots of people. Well, of like the 4 chairs, 3 people are trying to nap. They either have like a mask on, headphones on with their eyes closed, earplugs in. You're just sitting there browsing your phone, not even trying to take a nap. Should you be using one of those valuable chairs? I think that's inappropriate behavior. What do you guys think? One good thing about the Lufthansa lounge is they did have a shower stall, and I was able to reserve that. I made a crucial mistake, though, of taking a hot shower, which felt really good in the moment. But then the second it was over, there was no ventilation, and it was insanely humid. So, like, trying to put on your underwear and your socks in a humid room, like, no matter how much you towel off, it's like, your socks rubbing up against your skin, and it's very tacky and doesn't quite fit right. So, note to self, take a room temperature shower, not a hot shower, if you're going to shower in a lounge with not a lot of ventilation. That was like a 5.5 hour layover. Then we got on the big boy, the A380, the largest plane currently in operation by commercial airlines. This was a double decker on Lufthansa, 4 engines. Business class and first class are on the upper deck, and that's what we got. But the entire upper deck is first and business. So we were actually towards the back, but still in business class. It was like a pod of 2 on the side, 2 in the middle, 2 on the other side, and we got sides next to each other so we could look out the window a little bit. Here's a picture of me on the plane taken by someone else in classic Dugroz style. Here is, this is weirdly zoomed out. Okay, that's my family sitting on the plane. Now you will notice, and this is something lots of people complain about, is that there is not direct aisle access for the people up against the window. So of each row of 6, window, aisle, window, 2 people will not have direct aisle access. And there is a little thing you can pull up here in the middle, but it's not very big. Now, for us traveling as a family of 4, we had 2 groups of 2. So obviously, no problem whatsoever. But I could see if you're a solo traveler, not really liking these business class seats on Lufthansa. But again, if you're traveling in a group of 2, 4, 6, 8, in my opinion, it's totally fine as long as you get used to the person that you're sitting next to. That also led to a lot of people wanting to trade. Like, somebody walked up to the guy in front of us and said, like, "Excuse me, do you mind trading with me? I have a seat in the very front of business." And he's like, "Yeah, as long as I don't have to like crawl over someone." I was like, "Nope, it's not a window seat." "Okay, I don't mind trading." And I heard somebody else trading earlier. He's like, "As long as you don't put me in a window seat, I don't mind trading." Basically, the idea is I don't want to have to crawl over a stranger if I need to get up or use the bathroom. And I get that because that was a 9-hour flight. J-Fan says, "I can't speak for everyone, but I don't see those chairs being as relaxing for sleeping." They do lay flat. They do actually lay all the way flat. They really do. Trust me. I'm not making it up. Food. I didn't take a picture of all the food on the plane, but this was the main course. It's kind of like They called it steak. I would call it more like Salisbury steak. If you've ever had the old Swanson brand TV dinners, or there's another brand that has Salisbury steak, it was like a really fancy TV dinner. It was like the meat was thicker than that, but not as thick as a real steak. I don't know what they called it. Beef steak, something like that. And then one of the desserts items was this cheesecake, which was really, really good. Rex clarifies that schnitzel is breaded pork. Yeah, so kind of like an Iowa pork tenderloin. We landed at the IAD Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C., and stayed at a Sonesta ES Suites. And this actually was a suite, like a real suite. It had one bedroom with two queens, one bedroom with a king, and then a common area in the middle. The bathrooms came off of each bedroom. So you didn't have a common area bathroom, but you did have like one for the kids, one for mom and dad. So that actually worked out perfectly for us. I booked that using either Expedia or hotels.com. You'll remember my wife signed up for the One Key credit card, which is the rewards program for Expedia, with Wells Fargo a little less than a year ago. So she had that sign up bonus that came with it. And we used, I think it was like 240, 280, somewhere in that range, dollars of her Expedia cash towards that. And that was a perfectly cromulent use of that. It was just a one night place to stay. Didn't need to get two separate rooms. That way we just got one big room for us. It was actually almost more like a townhouse. It was like you go to one building to check in, then you go outside, go to a separate building to your suite. So MR said it looked exactly like Salisbury steak, which with all its German efficiency, maybe it was Salisbury steak. MR says the Sonesta ES that I stayed at in New Orleans really surprised me. It had a kitchen to cook in and a full fridge if we desired. So I no longer call them So Nasty because of this. I never heard So Nasty before. I know they're, obviously read your reviews. This one was well reviewed. Ian says they're replacing those seats soon. Oh, are they going to go with the pod style where everybody has direct aisle access? That would probably be a good thing. And then the next day we transited via Uber. I was originally going to take the subway, but man, we got in late. We were just so tired the next morning. I splurged for like a $90 Uber to go from the suburbs to downtown Arlington to get into the Reagan Airport. And there we experienced the Capital One landing at Washington Reagan. Interestingly, of all the lounges went to, this was our favorite. It was my favorite, and it was definitely my wife's favorite. Part of the reason why is it's almost more like a restaurant than a lounge. So you can see specific seating areas, and you're met by oh, look at this guy giving me the stink eye. You're met by a hostess who walks you to your seat. So one thing my wife says, I really like someone assigning me a seat rather than the awkward lounge walking around trying to find a seat. This is our family sitting over here. And then there's a QR code on the table where you can order food for them to come up and bring it to you. Or you can walk up to, there's like a food area over here. We didn't do anything with alcohol, not that we ever really do, but I think they had some alcoholic beverages you could have too. We actually got there before breakfast ended. It ended at like 11, and then they switched to lunch. So we had a couple breakfast items. Mostly just for trying it out because the Sonesta Suites had a free breakfast too. Funny story in the Sonesta Suites. You know how if you get eggs at a hotel, sometimes they come in like this round thing with its own glass lid that's like on a hydraulic thing that helps you lift it, and it's about this big. When I went to lift it up, the entire thing started sliding backwards off of its stone and almost fell on the floor. So I'm literally holding like an 8-pound thing of eggs with one hand. I was like, trying to pull it back on. I did recover, but man, how awkward / hilarious would that have been if I had dropped like 8 pounds of eggs on the floor at the Sonesta. But anyway, yeah, I liked that. They would bring you stuff. They had this like Bavarian pastry, ironic since we just got back from Austria and Germany, filled with vanilla cream that was like to die for at breakfast. I only had one, but I could have had about 12 of them. But my wife was like, don't fill up on that. Save some for lunch. They're probably not very healthy. And she's right, but at the same time, pastry. So I don't remember if that's the booth we sat at or one just like it, but that sort of booth. And then this is one of the food items. It was basically like a miniature steak, or like steak ends or something like that. They had a super fancy name for it. I don't remember what it was, but it was delicious. MR says probably have egg on your face after that. There was some random young lady who saw me do it, and she was like, she would have judged me so hard if I dropped it. Capital One Lounge is pretty nice in DCA. Yeah, I agree. Um, Augustus, save room for later. I don't know what that's a reference to. I'm thinking of an episode of the Goldbergs where they're like, "Don't you fill up on bread?" Okay, then we got on a plane, just a regular old American Airlines domestic first class, and flew home. But at that point, I was so tired, I didn't take hardly any pictures. I have like this one picture of my wife looking out the window. But yes, that last flight from Washington, D.C. to Des Moines was completely uneventful. We were home. The trip ended. Happiness all around. Very happy to be home. My son was a little bit sick. I was still just a little bit sick. Of course, the way sickness goes in families. About a week later, my wife started getting sick. My sickness actually resolved and is now coming back. So whether I got a new strain or just a flare up of the original strain, I'm not sure. My cough prevention seems to be kicking in here. Yeah, Augustus is a reference to Willy Wonka. Augustus Goop, Augustus Goop. I don't remember how it goes, but something like that. The German kid, it fits the theme, trust me. He was the one who overate and exploded or something like that. I can't remember. Did he actually explode or almost explode? All right. Thank you, everyone. We're a little light on attendance this morning. Only 50 people on board. Normally, by this time, I'm up in the 70s or 80s. So maybe that's my fault for not having enough World of Points and Miles data points, or maybe everybody's mad at me for starting 15 minutes late. No harm if you would keep on thumbs upping and keep on dropping those little tiny or big super chats. I would appreciate it. MR says he fell in the chocolate river. Okay, that was the one. Was there some other kid that swelled up like real big, or is that a different movie I'm thinking of? No matter. All right, we're going to share this tab instead. And here we go. The theme of the day, full size. Paying myself back, points for more than just flights and hotels. So last week I talked about all my Hilton credits, and that included a look at using Aeroplans for hotels when it's not a very good points price. I should probably pause for just a moment to explain what pay yourself back is. So there's a specific meaning and a general meaning. So the general meaning would be any way that you can charge something to your credit card and then wipe that charge out using points. So I've got 3 examples showing on the screen here. We have the Aeroplan card issued by Chase, which is the Air Canada credit card. And yes, you can certainly use those points for flights on Air Canada and their partners, but you can also make purchases and then pay yourself back at 1.25 cents per point by just checking a few boxes after the fact if it codes as travel. Chase's definition of travel is one of the most broad. So even things like transit, riding a bus, parking lot, that kind of thing, will usually code as travel. More details on that in a little bit. There is a limit on that. It's 200,000 points per card per year. So at 1.25, that's $2,500 in spending. My wife and I each have an Aeroplan card. So if we plan it out right, we've got enough bandwidth to pay ourselves back on $5,000 worth of expenses over the course of a year. Of course, what qualifies and doesn't qualify can be a little tricky, and we'll get into that. So the specific use of pay yourself back is that top credit card, the Aeroplan card. But sometimes I will generally use the phrase paying myself back for other cards that let you do that as well. For example, the Capital One Venture X, well, any of the venture cards, you can erase travel at 1 cent per point. And that's just like it sounds. So say you book a $100 flight, wait a few days for the pending charge to become a posted charge, go into your app or website. It'll be a button right there that says erase travel. It'll show you a list of eligible purchases. Click a button, boom, you erased it. And that's at a penny per point. So that $100 flight would cost 10,000 points. And then the last most common example is the US Bank Altitude Reserve Card. Closed to new applicants. It's grandfathered. I apologize, but I talk about that one all the time. It has a thing called real-time rewards where, subject to certain minimums, if you make a purchase and it's over the minimum and you have enough points, you can get a text message, send a text message back, and functionally cash out the points to cover those charges at 1.5 cents per point. In terms of cents per point on that one, it's at 1.5 cents per point. I said the Venture X is at 1 cent per point. The Aeroplan is at 1.25, but you can often, I shouldn't say often, but twice a year, if you're very strategic about it, you can transfer Chase points to Aeroplan with a 20% bonus. You get an extra 10% if you have the Aeroplan card, and it's in increments of 50,000 or more. So functionally, 1 becomes 1.3 on the transfer, and then you're paying yourself back at 1.25. So 1.3 times 1.25 means functionally you're cashing out your Chase points to cover purchases at 1.625 cents per point. So in today's video, we're going to talk about all the different ways you can pay yourself back on things while on vacation. I've got a couple examples showing here. Me holding the steering wheel on the right side of a car in the United Kingdom, so rental car, the Sch&ouml Palace Tour, and I'll tell you how I did that a little later. So things like attractions, rental cars. There are other examples as well. Let me see if I missed any important comments here while I was explaining all of that. Let's see. Matt says Augustus fell in the chocolate river and then got stuck in the tubes. Okay. Gold Homer says the whole reason I'm here is to find out who didn't take Amex on your trip. I actually didn't use Amex on my trip at all, with the exception of the Surpass card and my wife's business Platinum at Hilton's to trigger the $50 credit. So I apologize, Gold Homer. I don't really have any data points to share. Violet was the character in Willy Wonka who swelled from the blueberry something. Luke says, looked like a great trip. It was. Thank you, Luke. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing. I will do a whole trip breakdown video, maybe multiple videos in the future. This is sort of a overview on the first part, and now we're going to get real nerdy about one specific aspect. Flying Ryan says, in Willy Wonka, the mom said to save room for later when he was eating too much. A violet blew up, but I digress. Arnold says, DCA is nice. It was difficult for my U.S. child, age 14, to find things he could even explore trying. I got one of about half the menu and had him try things. He'd okay 2 more grilled cheese sandwich orders. I get what you're saying, Arnold. In fact, somebody private messaged me. Was it Ryan? Somebody messaged me about the very same thing, and I have the very same thing. So one of my boys is a little more adventurous in eating than the other one, but both of them to some degree are like, I want hamburgers, chicken strips, grilled cheese sandwiches, and macaroni and cheese. And just to clarify, when I say macaroni and cheese, if it has anything on it, we are out. So no crumblies, no cornflakes. I don't want the fancy shells with white cheese. I want plain old Kraft macaroni and cheese. The Great Value Walmart version is acceptable. So like, for example, there in the DCA Landing, Capital One, they had, I think they called it like a fritter of some kind, chicken fritter, which is basically just chicken mixed with fried cheese, deep fat fried. And he actually liked it, but the name threw him off. So I had to order it. He had to watch me eat it. Then he tried it and was good with it. But yes, he did get like 4 of the grilled cheese sandwiches, which are like this big, and they give you 2 strips. So like it probably takes 4 of them to make one normal sized teenage sandwich. That's a whole problem with Capital One, is I wish they had just like 2 or 3 more items that were just normal American food, like hamburger, for example. Ron says, can't watch live. I have to fix some things at my mother-in-law's house. Wife and mother-in-law points are more valuable than credit card points. They are indeed. I'll give you a hat tip right at the end of the video, Ron, because you made a graphic that I used. JC says, I almost feel ashamed trying to use my Amex abroad due to fear of rejection. I get that feeling. All right. Continuing with the presentation here. All right. So I got to give a few disclaimers here. So we're not going to discuss Hilton's here. last week. So last week I did a video. Here's what it looked like up in the corner. It's called Hilton Milk It for All It's Worth, where I went over how I use my Hilton gift card, my Hilton Surpass credit, my wife's Hilton credit on the Amex Business Platinum card, and what I spent on Hilton's. I did use a large amount of pay myself back on the Aeroplan card at Hilton's. But I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go over a list of exactly what I did and did not use at Hilton's, because there's a whole separate episode discussing that. Last week, find last week's live stream. Unfortunately, due to a technical glitch, I had an A part and a B part, but just watch those two parts and you'll see what that's all about. I'm not going to discuss the initial airfare taxes and fees. So you'll see I put a picture here of a plane. Those of you who followed along for more than a few months know about the Condor debacle, how I originally booked our vacation flying into, or maybe it was home from, I don't remember, Frankfurt, Germany, directly into Minneapolis on Condor, which is sort of like the Great Value brand of Lufthansa, although they're not actually legally affiliated. There was a court case. They lost some of their connecting flights and they chose to drop their San Antonio and Minneapolis routes altogether. So I booked it through Alaska. They let me cancel, get all my money back. Ended up flying on Virgin, which is what the picture is you see here, premium economy to get to England, also discussed last week. The bottom line is I used the Capital One Venture X, which was a whole different card at the time, did a product change, very confusing, and used that to erase my Condor taxes and fees. Later, they refunded it, so I actually kind of got just cash. It'd be like if you had a charge for $500, a pay yourself back for $500, and then a refund for $500. So I did basically on a net basis cover my taxes and fees. I just applied it to a different flight. I'm not going to go into details on that or have a screen dedicated to that to here, but it will be in the totals. So both the things I just mentioned will be included in the totals at the end. I'm just not going to actually spend time discussing it. All right, so let's dive in. Part one is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, a great movie from the late 80s or mid 80s. I don't remember. Steve Martin, John Candy. This is me standing next to a train. More details on what that train is in just a little bit. And here we have a picture of the train conductor who was nice enough to smile for me and let me take a really great picture. Either that or it's AI generated, one of the two. Planes. So I mentioned earlier in the video about the KLM lost my luggage, but other than losing my luggage and making a sprint to the boarding gate in Manchester, everything went fine. That's sort of like, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Well, other than the assassination attempt, it was great. Nice picture of KLM looking out over, I don't know if that's Netherlands or Germany or Austria or UK, I have no idea, but over some part of Europe, got the KLM logo right there. So I had to cross the channel somehow when we went from the United Kingdom over to Austria, from Wales over to Austria. So we flew on an airplane. I thought about doing the Sch&ouml and the Channel train. What's it called? Europa Express or something like that, but it would have taken too much time. So we just flew. KLM took Manchester to Vienna with a layover in Amsterdam. And I used points for that. This wasn't a great use of points, but I had a failed Danish expedition a couple years ago. So I have like 180,000 Flying Blue points, which is KLM and Air France's combined reward programs. So after figuring out the taxes and fees, it only ended up being like 1.25 cents per point, something like that. But I'm like, I have the points. It's better than using them elsewhere. I'm just going to use them. But even with that, for 4 people, it was almost $400 in taxes and fees. Like I said, my wife and I had the last row of Comfort Plus. My kids had main cabin, basically. That was not including a $51 seat selection fee. So that's $426 total. And I used Aeroplan to pay myself back 1.25. That comes out to 34,080 Aeroplan points. Of course, it'd be even less if you're thinking Chase points because they always had a bonus. Yeah, that's it. I'll pause right there and catch up on comments here. Cold Homer asks, our mother-in-law points a Dugroz transfer partner. I'm banned from Bennigan's. I'll have to check on that. Robert says the Sch&ouml is fun. Matt reminds me it's called a Eurostar. What what did I call it? Europa. There was a video game 10 to 20 years ago called Europa Universalis. Have you ever had an experience in life where you play a video game and you're super into it for like a day or 2 days and then you never play it again? So early on in my points and miles journey, maybe even before points and miles, sometimes my wife and kids would fly to Arizona and I couldn't because I had to work. So let's say they flew from like a Wednesday to a Wednesday. We'd cross over a weekend. On Saturday, I'm at home alone, have nothing to do. There's been a couple different times I bought a new video game and just played it. So like 6 hours or 8 hours straight of video games. Europa Universalis was one of those. So I played it for like 8 hours, probably woke up the next day on Sunday afternoon, played it for 4 hours, like 12 hours total. Never played it again. Same thing with Tropico 3. So have you ever had a video game you just splurged and then never came back to? That's what I did. Europe, not Europa, Eurostar. Keep clicking thumbs up. We're down to 47 people. A lot of people are falling off. So if you have any suggestions for why this doesn't have a broad appeal, let me know. Maybe my thumbnail wasn't very good. Anything helps, even a 99-cent super sticker. Hey, remember earlier when I said my kids sat behind us in a row with a random girl that was the same age as them? Apparently, I did save the picture. I just had it in this part of the presentation. So this is me giving my best dad face, and then one of my sons with his head down like this. They didn't say a single word to the girl the whole time, other than like, I think I booked aisle and window, and so she was sitting in the middle, and like one of them said like, do you want to sit by the window? It's up to you. So she's like, okay, scooted over. Like that was their entire conversation. We think she was probably Dutch because the boys said when she ordered her snack and drink from the flight attendant, she answered in whatever language the flight attendant was speaking. And since it was on the Royal Dutch Airlines, I'm guessing it was Dutch. Just another view of the plane here. And then this is the leg room we had in the exit row. This is me sitting standardly, so lots of room for the knees. Unlike on the way from Iowa to Washington, D.C., where we got rerouted onto a flight because our direct flight was canceled and I had to sit back in plebeian class with everybody else. Robert says, Wizards, pre-Windows, no graphic card, 1986, 13 hours a day. That was your video game, huh? I feel like I should remember Wizards. Said, no, Wizardry. That sounds like a 1986 type game. Was there a lot of text-based commands that you were putting in? Like, you have encountered a gold dragon. What do you want to do? Spell. Which spell would you like to use? Drop-down menu. Number 3, hurt more. You have cast hurt more. I'm just guessing here. Nuracan71 drops $1.99 trying to bump up that algorithm. Celebrate. Thank you, Nuracan. I really, really appreciate it. Way to keep things going. Let's see if it starts a trend. Robert says, yep, it was text-based. G. Bhutan 2011 says, I'm at 424 now. I've been holding out for the CSR update or Aeroplan card. However, with all the change in the industry, I'm thinking of pivoting to all cash back. Any thoughts? I'm never going to blame someone for going cash back. You got to do what fits you best. If your style is the same as mine, I did an experiment once where I tried to do all cash back and use it for travel, and it just didn't go well. So I think for me, what works best is a combination of points and cash back. And the types of things you're seeing in this video where it's like kind of like cash, but you're getting something better than 1 cent per point by wiping out charges, that really works well for me. Now, I admit you would have to have an Aeroplan card and then at least a $99 transfer card like the CSP. So there's so many factors, it's hard to say. But if you're a clone of me, I would not go to all cash back. But don't get me wrong, I do a healthy mix of cash back. I use PayPal debit for dining. I use the US Bank Cash Plus for my utilities. I'll use my CIC to mix in my, Staples gift cards now and then, those sorts of things. All right, continuing on here. So we did planes. Now let's talk about trains. The specific train I took was called the Transpennine Express. And the idea is we flew into the Manchester airport. We never actually spent time in the town of Manchester. We just transited through it. And there's a train line that goes directly from the Manchester airport to York, which is where we stayed. It's about the same distance as going from like Des Moines, Iowa to Ottumwa, Iowa, if you're familiar with that. About an hour and 45 minutes. We do had some delays, so it was more like 2 hours and 10 minutes on the way there, probably about the same, around 2 hours on the way back. One thing I thought was funny is on the way back, they had, and this is kind of sad, they said, I apologize, folks, there was a accident earlier in the day on one of our train lines, not this train line, but a different one, and there was a fatality involved. I don't know what was involved. If somebody got hit by a train, someone fell on the tracks or what. That's not the funny part. The funny part's coming up. But because of that, a lot of the passengers from that train line had to be rerouted onto this train line. So like instead of stopping for 5 minutes per station, they're stopping like 7 minutes per station. So at the end of the ride, they were like 6 minutes behind. And the funny part is how apologetic they were. The conductor was like, I'm so sorry. We're about 8 minutes behind schedule right now. I think we'll make it up and only end up about 6 minutes behind schedule. And I'm like, have you ever ridden Amtrak? 6 minutes behind schedule is actually early. I was on an Amtrak once that was 2 hours behind schedule, and somebody in the same station said like a few days earlier it was 6 hours behind schedule because there'd been flooding. So 6 minutes is nothing. I digress. We rode on the if you have a funny Amtrak or train delay story, let me know. We rode on the Trans-Pennine Express for about 2 hours. I like the paint job. I like the yellow, blue, gray, various shades of blue. It's hard to see, but it says Trans-Pennine right there. This line took us from Manchester Airport to York, and it was $226 for a family of 4, and that's round trip. So it felt like booking a plane ticket. Basically, on this day we're going there, on this day we're coming back. There was a small discount for booking round trip. This is a tip that might help out if you're looking for different ways of doing it. If you just search from the town of Manchester, it was substantially more expensive than searching from the Manchester airport. So if you can find a way to just hang out at the airport until the time is right, it was like 25% less expensive. It was also less expensive if you bought a ticket for a specific time. Like ours was, I'm making something up, 3:30 in the afternoon. Now you can buy one ticket that will let you ride the train anytime that day, but you can also buy a ticket just for the 3:30 departure, and that was less expensive. So the way we got the price down was by departing from the Manchester airport. We didn't actually go into the town of Manchester and do anything. And I think the logic there, I'm just guessing, I don't know for sure, someone can check me on this, is the United Kingdom is probably trying to encourage public transit. So it was called something like an airport departure rate. So I'm guessing they want people to fly into a hub airport and then take a train because it's better for the environment, as opposed to flying into an airport and renting a car, or flying into an airport and having a friend drive and pick you up, or flying into an airport and then taking a connecting flight to another smaller city. So I'm guessing the government subsidizes that airport rate. What we did was we actually flew into the airport at like 8 in the morning, went to a day rate DoubleTree hotel, took a nap for like 3 hours, came back to the airport, which was like a few blocks away, stupidly paid an Uber for a 3-block trip instead of walking. My bad. And then hopped on the train at our appointed time. Didn't have to go through security a second time. The train depot is in the airport, but it's on the ground side, not the air side of security. So no big deal there. And one thing about trains that I think is great, maybe opinions will differ, you don't have to go through security. So there's no x-ray, there's no scanning, nothing like that. You just have your ticket and get on board. And this was also honor system. There was no one at the gate checking or anything like that. I take that back. At the Manchester airport, I did have to scan the barcode on my phone to get through a couple of doors. But on the return trip, boarding at York, going back to Manchester, there was no checking. Now, a guy did come through the train and check on us. Another story that was just a little frustrating, but not too bad, probably just because I'm an ignorant American, is there were assigned seats on my ticket, but we got on board and somebody was sitting in our assigned seats, and the person said, and I could tell they were tourists too, but I think they were tourists from somewhere else in the UK because there was a British accent involved, said, "Oh, the conductor told me that it's open seating. You can sit anywhere you like." It was a more refined accent than the Manchester accent, so he wasn't from Manchester. I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh, that's okay. There's a table right behind you that's empty. We'll just sit there. And it wasn't a problem. Same thing on the way back. Like we had assigned seats, but like everybody was just sitting wherever they felt like. So the first train we walked into was actually first class, and there was like plenty of seats open. So we just sat there because like, well, the seats we're supposed to sit in are taken. But about 30 minutes in, a conductor came through and looked at our ticket and said, you can sit anywhere you want. It is open seating, but you can't sit here. So he made us move from first class to plebeian class, which for a 2-hour trip wasn't that big of a difference. There's all my train related stories. $226 round trip. That comes out to 18,080 Aeroplan points at 1.25. I thought this was funny. As we were riding to York, obviously we had just taken the world's best 3-hour nap, but we were still really tired and jet lagged. And I told my son, hey, look at the beautiful, beautiful scenery. There's sheep, there's rolling hills, there's like old buildings. I mean, there weren't like castles out the window, but probably 200-year-old brick buildings. And he's like, he was just too tired to enjoy it. All right, let me catch up on comments here, see where we are. Oh, I fell way behind. Wizardry was a text-based game, Robert says. We already answered that. Rodrigo says, just woke up on the West Coast. Are we liking the new Citi card? Have official details come out? If they have, it's been since the beginning of this live stream. Based on rumors, no, we are not liking it. Robert says, yes, Germans used to apologize profusely for those 5-minute delays, not so much anymore. Hey, look who's arrived. It's Santa Claus. Mike Newland drops 20. Count them. 20. Dugroz reports memberships. That's just as good as a $60 donation. Celebrate, celebrate. Never expected, but always appreciated, Mike. Mike is my benefactor, and I appreciate you so, so much. So again, if anybody gets a donated membership, first of all, I'd appreciate if you consider keeping it more than the 1 month that's free. And then secondly, let us know. That would just be fun to hear if you got one. The other thing worth mentioning is that a great thing about donating memberships is some people keep them, even if it's a small percentage. That goes a long way. Fargonaut says, running late, catching up. All the free food looks terrific. Awesome. Mike says, good morning. I landed late last night coming in from Japan, and it was Groundhog Day for us. It was the 18th for 2 days. Oh, awesome. That's always a fun thing about flying across multiple time zones. I know like when we flew back from Europe to America, it was like a 9-hour flight, but only like 3 hours of time had passed or something like that. Flying from Japan would be even more intense because you're going across the international date line. Thanks, Mike. Again, I appreciate it so, so much. You're the best. Unless it's Fleetwood Mac, I don't care much for rumors. Thank you, MR. I appreciate that. Extra comments, extra gifts, extra thumbs up. Help improve this video, even though we're getting a little further along here. It's 11:25 Central Time, so I probably need to wrap it up in about 35 minutes. I shoot for noon Central Time. This will cause more people to watch it later. Every time you comment, make a gift, click thumbs up. So I really, really appreciate it. Celebrate, everyone. Little bit of a sore throat for those of you joining late, so my celebrations are just a little muted. Ian drops $4.99 and says, Mike always making us look bad. Laughy face, palm face. Celebrate. Thank you, Ian. Hey, you're one of my diehardiest diehards, so don't feel bad. We all contribute what we can. It's like Sally Fields or Sally Struthers. Every little bit helps. I thought about doing some sort of appeal a la PSA about all the starving Dugroz children or something, but I haven't fleshed that out very well yet. Back to the presentation, the theme of the day. All right, we did planes. Trains continued. So this is the subway in Vienna. I did like their clearly labeled signs with time and everything. That's my family in a window there. There's one of the trains. One of the things I said about graffiti holds true. See, there's graffiti right there on the front of the train. It is called on the app the... how do you pronounce it? Oh, you told me, Robert, and I forgot. Is it Weinen or Weenen? Wien? I think it's Wien, like Veen. Wiener Leinen or something like that. Wiener Leinen or Weiner. I like to call it the Weiner Liner or the Wiener Line. It's like a Wiener mobile. I took the Wiener Line, the Wiener Line. And adding an at the end to the name of the town. Again, Wien is the name of Vienna in German. It would be like, if you were in New York City, they call it the New Yorker line or something like that. So it makes sense. But I took the Weiner liner and took 6 total trips. Like I said, you pay per trip, and all 4 family members converted into US dollars. It was like 11 or so dollars per trip, something like that. Well, I guess I got the number coming up here. Yeah, just a little over $11 per trip. That totaled $68. And I used Aeroplan for every single one of them. That's 5,440 Aeroplan points that I was able to pay myself back on the Weiner liner. Frugal Dad says, I have 5 minutes to grab some flapjacks and come back as a Dugroz diehard. Thank you. Hey, get those flapjacks. Hey, better late than never. Chad Pennycuff has arrived. Both Frugal Dad and Chad are big-time Dugroz diehards. They signed up before Mike started making his epic donations. So there's some of the OG diehards. Ian is too. And lots of others. Not trying to leave anyone out here. All right, we did planes, we did trains, time for automobiles. So there's a picture of me standing next to the rental car in Wales. So even though I talked about the benefits of taking mass transit, which we did, when we rode from York back to the Manchester airport, I picked up a rental car, and this was through Enterprise. It was a Citroën Airstream. Never had even heard of the brand Citroën. I'm assuming it's a European manufacturer, probably in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary. I'm just guessing. I don't know for sure. If anybody knows where Citroëns are made or wants to Google it, let us know. I was kind of like there's like a Toyota, like a small Toyota Highlander or like a small Toyota Kia Sorento, something like that. It was fine. All of our luggage fit. That's me standing next to our cottage in Wales. This was with Enterprise rental car. It was Monday through Friday. So if you're counting 24-hour periods, Monday to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 24-hour periods. And we did use almost all of that. I went from like 1 o'clock to 1 o'clock for the most part. It crossed over 5 different days, though. So I think the way they bill that is as 4 days. The cost was actually fairly reasonable. It was only $319, so less than $100 a day. Really down around 80 or less. I didn't do the per day math, but with Aeroplan, it all went on there, and I paid myself back at 25,520 Aeroplan points. There was a bonus. I had a fine of $48 that I incurred. How did that happen? So I'll get into details on the location a little later, but we went to this place called Great Orme, O-R-M-E, which is like a giant piece of limestone that sticks out into the ocean in Wales. It's a mountain, but it's not it's not Pikes Peak or Mount Everest, but it is a small mountain, maybe 2,000 feet, 2,500, something like that at the peak. And there was a parking area, and you could either park like at the base of the mountain, like street parking, or you could drive like a third of the way up the mountain and park at this like gravel and grass parking lot that was a lot more rural. And we took the latter. And it's kind of honor system. Like you park, you walk over to a little machine where you punch in your details. I tried the machine twice, and I honestly had no idea if I did it correctly or not. Part of the problem was it asked me about what tariff do you want? And I'm like, what tariff did I want? Does this have something to do with like the, what's it called? The VAT value added tax they have in the United Kingdom? I don't even know what it's talking about. But I'm like, well, I'm from a different country. Like I had President Trump in my head. Like, did they just put a tariff on us somehow that I'm having to pay over here in the United Kingdom? Like, Dugroz, you better pay the tariff or you're going to be in big trouble when you get back. I'm just saying, a lot of people are good with the tariff. But you had to push a button. And when I hit the tariff button, it was like, I don't remember what it was, like 2 pounds, 4 pounds, 7 pounds, 10 pounds. Like, I don't know, what tariff am I supposed to pay? And I did it all in the wrong order, and I tried it twice. The second time around, I thought I got it. Now, I later figured out after a while that looking at like dictionary.com, the word tariff has more than one meaning. There's the meaning we've all heard about lately, but it can also just mean any kind of fee that is based on like a structure or assessment. So what we would say here in America is, how many hours do you want to pay for? It was like 2 pounds got you 1 hour, 4 pounds got you 2 hours. 7 pounds got you 6 hours and 10 pounds got you 8 hours or something like that. I should have just paid the most expensive one, the 10-pound tariff, because then it would have still been way less than the $48 fine that I got. And what happened is, probably a meter maid or someone came by, looked at my license plate, checked the machine, like, "Ew, Charlie, he did not know." This was in Wales. "Frickin' be herpin', he did not pay his tariff." That was more Scottish. Sorry, my Celtic accent isn't working this morning. Um, and probably put me into a computer system is not paying it. I thought I did it correctly the second time on my Wells Fargo autograph, but obviously I didn't. And when I went back and looked at the receipts later, it said void and I never got charged. So instead, they sent that on to whoever owned the car, which was Enterprise. And it was like $30 for the actual fine. And then they tack on like an $18 processing fee and just charge it to whatever credit card you use. I did also use pay yourself back on that, even though I didn't take the time to calculate the points amount on that. Where were we? Matt Clausen says, "In the eyes of a Dugroz." I don't remember what that's referencing. I apologize. Happy Tom says, "Better late than never indeed. We'll catch the replay." Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Jake T says, "A Citroen is a French car." My bad. Oh, yeah. Now that you say it. Citroen. That does sound French. MR says, "I'm pretty sure they're French. Skoda is the Czech car." Robert confirms Citroen is made in France and are very common in Europe. It says Citroen and Peugeot, I'm not sure you pronounce that, and technically Bugatti are French. Skoda is Czech. Seat is Spanish. Thank you for the pronunciation guide on Seat. Pugio, I don't know how you say it. Man, I talk about credit card strategies, no comments. I talk about foreign sounding words, lots of comment. Aren't we a cultured group around here? What a motley crew. And in this case, I mean motley in a very good way. Love y'all. All right. Automobiles continued. So on this trip, we did use Ubers and Lyfts. In fact, we took several. Now, I know this probably won't shock you, but I didn't take a lot of pictures of Lyfts and Ubers. The bottom picture is just a stock photo I found online somewhere. I never actually had a car that was painted pink like that. The top photo is my wife and my son in an Uber. They don't have Lyfts in Europe. They only have them in North America, but obviously I started and ended in North America. The picture inside this was in an Uber van. I reserved an Uber. There was like an Uber XL and an Uber XXL, and I either clicked the wrong one or just like someone with an extra big car picked us up. It was like this huge conversion van, like the size of an airport shuttle. And it was just my wife and two kids and I. So myself and my one son are facing backwards, looking at my wife and other son facing forward in this gigantic van with our 4 carry-on size bags and backpacks. So we had plenty of space on the Uber. That was when we got picked up in Vienna, when we landed at the Vienna airport and went to the hotel. I put a total of $120 worth on my US Bank Altitude Reserve, and I wrote domestic only. And that all qualified for real-time rewards. And what I mean by that is that text message thing where you spend over your minimum and you have enough points. US Bank will send you a text message. You respond the word redeem. That's called real-time rewards and cashes you out to cover those charges at 1.5 cents per point. That only works domestically. Now, Frequent Miler keeps a page of what works where. There have been people that have had success outside the US when it's with a US-based company. An example would be like if you're renting from Hertz, which is an American company, in Ireland, let's say, it would still trigger real-time rewards. But that's not universal. Some people say that has not worked. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So when I was like in Des Moines to the airport or home to the Des Moines airport to home, when I was jaunting around New York City for our repositioning flight, that's when I used the Altitude Reserve. With that in mind, it's very warm in my house right now, so I'm going to use my Google Nest, which I can do on my phone. Today's video is sponsored by Google to turn the temperature down. Oh man, it's all the way up to 74. That's way too hot for this Iowa boy. We need to get that down to 71. But I did get $120 worth of real-time rewards just on the domestic parts. With my CSR, Chase Sapphire Reserve, I do have the OG CSR before the change is going to affect in October. You get a $10 Lyft credit every month. And I crossed over 2 different months. So our trip started in June and ended in July. So I was able to use that twice. Now that figure includes the discount. So it was roughly $32 each. And then it's also worth mentioning that my card member anniversary hit during the middle of our trip. So my Lyft to get to the Des Moines airport did not trigger the $300 credit, but my Lyft home from the Des Moines airport did. So I didn't bother including the CSR $300 credit in today's calculations, but they were triggered. And when I do my final breakdown, don't worry, I'll account for every single penny. Today's video is more concepts than getting the math exactly right. I rounded everything off to the nearest whole dollar generally. With Aeroplan, I used Aeroplan for several of the lifts in Europe, and that was a total of $307, and I paid myself back at 24,560 points. So you can see 3 different cards, the CSR, Altitude Reserve, and Aeroplan all got used for Ubers and Lyfts on this particular vacation. David William is here, says, good morning. I'll have to watch from the start. I'm trying to figure out who that is in your thumbnail. It almost looks like that place we were at in New Orleans. Is it? Or is that something else? Dennis asks, where's my Bennigan's burger? Well, you'll have to get some Dugroz points and transfer it over to Bennigan's, Dennis. I know how much you love Bennigan's. Tongue in cheek on that one there. All right, so moving on. We went over planes, trains, and automobiles. There were some problems. Not everything is all peaches and cream with paying yourself back. And the problem comes in when you don't know with certainty how something's going to code. In fact, in many cases, you have no idea how something is going to code. My attitude on this trip was like, yes, I know I could use my Venture X and get 2 cents per points on some of these miscellaneous things that code as just a random merchant that doesn't trigger any particular category bonus. But even if like 1 out of 10 triggers real-time rewards or pay yourself back, I would rather do that. So I put a bunch of stuff on my Aeroplan cards, mine and my wife's, hoping it would trigger. Some of them did not. So let's go over those here. The first a couple failures. First was the Hilton Doubletree shuttle, that day rate Hilton where we took our epic nap. When I called them and asked for the shuttle, they said, oh, we use a third-party vendor called CPP Shuttles. This was a stock photo. This wasn't the actual one. So just go to our website and there'll be a link. You can either download an app or go to their website and type in this code. And they gave me a code so that we'd know it was with the Hilton, which wasn't free, but gave me a little bit of a discount since I was staying at the Hilton. And that did not work. To be more specific, it coded as digital apps. It had nothing to do with transit, transportation, hotels, nothing at all. So that one was just a didn't get to pay myself back at all. And it was 20 some bucks. And then the second one, I've got a cool graphic crossing it out, letting us know it doesn't work. And then the second one was the Great Orme Tram. This picture might look familiar. So I mentioned the big limestone rock that sticks out into the ocean. The name of the rock is called the Great Orme, kind of like in Gibraltar, they have the Rock of Gibraltar. It's the same idea. You can kind of see it there in the background a little bit. This one is called the Great Orme Tram, which is a private company, but it's a rail tram. It's a funicular, if you know what that is. Basically, it's counterbalanced weights. So there's always one going up as one comes down. It's like completely silent. It's weird because the engine is not in the tram. It's at the midpoint station. So you got one up, one down, halfway. Then you switch to a different one, and then another one half up, half down, and all the engines are at the midway station. Very cool, but didn't work for pay yourself back. And the reason why it didn't work is because it coded as billiard and pool halls. What? Who set up this one? Now, Someone asked me last week, like, why did you have to use so much cash? This is the place where, like, I read a website or a review, and in fairness, it may have been a third party website or maybe a Google review saying they don't take credit cards, they only take cash. So I'm wondering if it's fairly recently they just started taking credit cards. I went to an ATM and got cash thinking I would need it. So I paid for my 17-year-old still counted as children. Anyone under 18 did. So I got a little discount. So I paid for the children's tickets with cash, paid for the adult tickets with my Aeroplan card, but it coded as billiard and pool halls. So I kind of wonder if the parent company, because like I said, it's owned by a private company, the parent company that owns the tram also owns like a pool hall in town or something like that. And they're like, should we set up a new code? And like, nah, let's just tack it on to Benny's Billiard Hall or something like that. Oh, another cool graphic. Yep. Can't pay yourself back on the tram. Chad says, when you don't know, use the Apple Pay on the US Bank Altitude Reserve. I probably should have clarified. That's good advice, Chad. Thank you. You can't use real-time rewards outside of the United States, in theory, but you can still use tap to pay on your phone and get 3x on every transaction. I did that quite a bit, for things where I knew that it wouldn't code as transit, but if it was like I was unsure, then I used my Aeroplan card. Jonathan Martinez says, good morning, Mr. Dugroz. You rock. Big hugs from Spanish Harlem and Manhattan, New York City. Also, thanks to Mike for the gifted membership. Awesome. Celebrate. Thank you, Mike, for giving that gift. And I'm glad Mr. Martinez here got that membership. And thanks for greeting me from Spanish Harlem. There was a song by the Mamas and the Papas back in the 60s. There is a rose in Spanish Harlem. Let's see. So we were around the LaGuardia and the JFK airport. We never actually crossed the East River. So I don't think that counts as Harlem. Am I remembering correctly that Harlem is like the north side of Manhattan? I don't have New York City geography memorized. I apologize. But if I ever go there, there will be a rose in Spanish Harlem. See what I did there? Mike Newland does come in hot. You're right, John. Thank you. Let's keep pushing ahead here. Next thing to note. All right, so we did part 1, which was planes, trains, and automobiles. Part 2 is activities and miscellaneous. So again, the Sch&ouml Palace, obviously that's an activity, and I'll go over details of how I booked that. Here we have a picture of an AI-generated man handing my AI-generated wife some folded laundry or towels or something. What could that be? Well, we'll get into that in just a little bit. Activities. So the aforementioned Sch&ouml Palace tour, or Schloss Sch&ouml. We had a guided tour. The lady here in the green shirt and the what do you call that? Like fluorescent marker colored yellow skirt was our tour guide. And she must have been saying like there was something very short or very little. I don't remember what it was. It was just 2 families on the tour, our family and one other family. The other family was originally from Europe, I think Spain, but had moved to the United States like 10 years ago. So they spoke great English, but it was weird because it was like I was in Austria listening to somebody who spoke English with a Hispanic accent. Hispanic is the wrong word, with a Spanish accent. So that was just kind of a fun blender of multiculturalism there. Speaking of multiculturalism, the Habsburgs, they probably weren't multicultural at all. Loved to take pictures of old-timey people doing old-timey things, or not take pictures of people, paint them, like, wearing your fine waistcoats and signing important documents. So this kind of picture was all over the wall. Actually, Napoleon's son, the one who died when he was like a teenager, spent the summers at this palace a couple times. So they had a picture of young Napoleon, like a 6-year-old Napoleon, maybe 4-year-old at this palace. There's another picture of the palace. This was booked through Viator. Different people have different opinions on Viator. I've only had 2 or 3 experiences, 3, I think, and they've all been good for me. The other good thing about Viator is for sure, at least with Chase and US Bank, it's going to code as travel. You don't have to worry about maybe it will, maybe it won't. So book through Viator. Yes, it coded as travel. And in this particular case, I used the Aeroplan card. The charge for my family of 4 was $233. So kind of expensive, but definitely worth it. The building itself, like the government run, what we would think of as a national park. Um, Actually, I don't even know if the palace is government run or not, but whoever runs the palace only gives like a very generic kind of tour where it's like a group of 50 people and some guy that's like, this is the white room, this is the blue room. I don't know. Maybe it's better than that. But like, this was like a 4-hour, highly personalized tour, inside, outside, included all the gardens. They have like probably a square mile of gardens, and admission. So admission would have been like $20 per person anyway. So we would have dropped close to $80 on admission. So if we're going to pay $80 anyway, why not pay $233, put on the Aeroplan card, Viator, pay myself back? That comes out to 18,640 points, Aeroplan points. And as a bonus, I also earned 932 British Avios. And if you're wondering how I earned that, Viator is often available on various cashback or points back portals. So go to like Cashback Monitor or Every Rewards or something like that, just to see who's paying the best on Viator. Nothing was very compelling. Like Rakuten was only 2% or something like that. The best one, and I had to make my decision kind of fast because it was the night before and tickets were going quick. Actually, the initial time we booked, by the time I got to checkout, was already taken. So I had to book our second preferred time. So I'm like, British Avios are fine. I'll use them someday. So I also got 932 British Avios, which, if I value them at $0.015 each, that's worth about $14. It's not bad getting that back. Jonathan says LGA is right across the East River from Manhattan. You were very close. I never actually went to LGA. I was supposed to fly into LaGuardia, but it got diverted to JFK because of a cancellation. But our hotel was the Long Island City Hilton Garden Inn. And it was like roughly halfway, like here's LaGuardia, here's JFK. It was like halfway in between, but closer to LaGuardia and a little bit west. So yeah. Probably only about 4 or 5 blocks from the East River, I'm guessing. Dad jokes. What was my dad joke? I don't even remember. A rose in Spanish Harlem. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad somebody likes it. And a guy named Frugal Dad better like it. That makes sense. All right. Thank you. Next activity. I put a little screenshot of my pending British Avios just to prove that it was a real thing. All right, we need to talk about the name of this town. So remember I talked about Great Orme going out the big limestone mountain that sticks out into the ocean? Great Orme is the name of the mountain. It's not the name of the town where you find the mountain. The name of the town is this right here. And I looked it up and tried to pronounce it in Welsh. The double L sound makes a TH type noise, but it's not an audible TH. They say it's almost just like an air noise. And then dud is more like did. So I'm going to try my best. Thundidno, something like that. And if I have any of my Welsh fans on board this morning, I really apologize. That's where it's located, right there at the top of Wales. The cottage that we were staying in is just to the right of Mount Waididfa, right about there, and above Erie National Park. So right about there is where we stayed. We frequently drove up here to the area around Thundidno. Manchester's over here. There's Liverpool. Never went into Liverpool, but basically drove from like here to here to here to get to our cabin. There it is up close. So you can see it's kind of a peninsula that sticks out into the ocean. Great Orme kind of makes up this whole part right here. There's the town of Thundidno, but I didn't learn to pronounce it till after our trip was over. So to make it easy, my boys and I just called it Lalando. That seemed a lot easier to us and way easier to remember. So from now on, I'm just going to call it Lalando. And that's important because in the category of miscellaneous, we had Lalando Pier parking. There's a picture of a parking lot there, and down below a parking lot machine. And that was Aeroplan, $7.56. We also parked at the Conwy Castle. There was an actual castle in the town of Conwy, which is right next to Lalando. In fact, I think it's sort of like maybe, trying to think of a good example here. Conway is to New York City as Lalando is to Harlem. Lalando might be more of a neighborhood. I'm not really sure. Any of my Welsh viewers that knows the relationship between those two towns, let me know. But Conway Castle's in Conway County, but sometimes over there they use the name of the county instead of the town. And I'm American. I don't understand such things. Des Moines is in Polk County, Iowa. I know that. Conway Castle parking was $6.90. So add those together, you got $14. And that comes out to 1,120 points. So that was one where just guessing that it would code as travel and paying myself back actually paid off. This is the parking lot of the castle. I took this picture specifically and asked my wife to take it for a couple reasons. One is because I knew I'd need it for some B-roll footage, but also because in the parking lot for the entire castle, I didn't take a picture of the pier parking because it was roadside and very boring. Just like, 5 or 6 parking meters, walk to the nearest machine and pay. But this one at the castle was like a whole parking lot that probably held 100 cars. There's only 2 machines for the entire parking lot, and it's honor system, so there's no gate or anything. Although I suppose hypothetically a meter maid could come around and check you. There was one near the exit where you pull out onto the road, and one where you leave the parking lot to walk through this little tiny tunnel to get to the castle. The excuse me. The parking meter next to the road was partially broken and only took cash. So if you wanted to use credit card, you couldn't use that one. So only like one person was using that one. The one closer to the castle had a line of several people in it. When I got there was 2 people in line ahead of me. By the time I was done, there was like 6 people in line. And for some reason, this was on a weekday. Like almost everyone going to see the castle that day was a senior citizen, like well over age 65. And let me tell you, the elderly were really struggling with that parking machine. Now, I will admit it was a very sunny day. And the screen was an LCD screen that looked like it'd seen better days. So like an old Game Boy from 1988 that's like, green and black. So you did kind of have to shade it. And the person ahead of me kept moving to see the numbers. The first person in line actually gave up. I was like, oh, I can't figure this out. Maybe I can't figure this out. Maybe you'll have better luck. I can't do a Welsh accent. It's like halfway between British and Scottish. I can't figure this out. Maybe you'll have better luck. There, that's better. A little Cockney. And let the next person go. And that person figured it out, but they really struggled with it. But like the second person in line took like 4 minutes. It took me like 45 seconds. So I think some of it's just a generational thing. And as my wife and I were walking away, we told ourselves, they should probably have a person in a booth because some people just aren't very comfortable with technology. I digress quite a lot. Here's the Lalando Pier on Google Maps. Actually, I think this is MapQuest satellite view. Over here's the Great Orme, the rock, and it's sticking out into the ocean there. There's a picture of my wife on the pier and a seagull also on the pier. Some of the seagulls were very obnoxious and way too tame. They would like follow you around hoping you drop a French fry or something. My wife loves scenic vistas where it's like wide open spaces. So I got a lot of husband points on this day. What's weird is I think it was on like Tuesday, we went to the pier and it was very cloudy and actually was raining when we started to leave. That was the only time we got rained on our whole trip, other than the day we left Vienna. The next day when we went to the castle, it was like bright and sunny and hot. So like this looks like stereotypical England or Wales. The next day was like very, very bright. And this was the next day. I started the day out. Actually, if you go back 2 pictures there. So this is the same day wearing my long sleeve shirt. And by the time we got to the castle, I'd shed the long sleeve shirt and was down to just a t-shirt. I think I had one of my kids hold it. The Conway Castle has like a modern-ish, maybe like early 1900s suspension bridge that leads up to it. And then the castle in the background that you actually, I wish you entered across the bridge and they had a drawbridge, but you don't. You go around the corner to get to the entrance. And here's a picture of me inside the castle. Just your, stereotypical English castle from, not too long after the 1066 Norman conquest. I think it was started in the late 1000s and like then remodeled in the 1100s and partially destroyed by Welsh raiders and then rebuilt in the 1200s, that kind of thing. So like an 800-year-old castle. What's kind of ironic, but also understandable is like the Welsh were basically taken over by the Normans who later became the English. And this was a Norman castle basically to fight against the Welsh, even though it's in Wales. So like it even said on like the plaque when you came in, like the whole reason King Edward built this castle was to repress the multiple Welsh rebellions that kept happening. And yet the Welsh are the ones who keep the castle alive. Kind of ironic, but also understandable. I'm a big fan of preserving history, regardless of the political, not regardless of, but even if it's maybe history that the locals didn't benefit from. Lots of nuance there, which we will not be getting into today. Let me pause and catch up on comments here. Yes, he did come in hot. We were talking about where LaGuardia is. Fargonaut says, Doug, I've heard a lot of folks say that Vienna is an incredible city to visit. If you didn't love it, is it more of a Dug versus Roz thing? Absolutely. You are 100% spot on there, Fargonaut. So Mr. Roz feels right at home in Wales because like the whole city of Lalando is probably like 10,000 people. It's like, you know, Washington, Iowa, or something like that. Throwing that out your way, Flying Ryan. So I just feel really at home. You know, there's no fanciness or anything like that. Vienna's a big city. I don't know how big it is, but it's at least like a St. Louis or Kansas City sized city. If anybody has the population statistics and can compare it to a comparably sized metropolitan area in the U.S., let us know. That would be awesome. Extra credit points will be awarded. Hey, we're over 60 people. Keep clicking thumbs up. Maybe we just got a late crowd today. Whereas Vienna, I think you have to pay to get into the fancy stuff. Like we ate at the fancy hotel restaurant, which was like $217. Maybe if we had packed like suits and dresses, then Dr. Dug and Mrs. Dr. Dug would have gone to a concerto and enjoyed it. Also, we had teenage boys with us. We're just a bunch of hamburger Joes. I think if I ever go back with just my wife, we bring dress clothes, we plan to go to a classical music concert, I think it's going to feel very different. So just remind me, if you could, Fargonaut, in about 5 years to check out Vienna again. Texas Dog says, howdy, I missed the first hour. Just finished my Saturday chores. Awesome. Jay Chain says, the right move would have been listening while doing chores. I have a cough drop in, by the way. I apologize. That's to prevent me from coughing. Texas Dog comes in very strong with a $5 super chat. Celebrate, celebrate. I see Mike Newland is in the gifting mood again. Let me buy your Coke at lunch today. Awesome. That'll go further than a Coke. That's like almost $20. No, I said that wrong. This is not gifted memberships. This is a super chat. So yeah, unfortunately, if you've been to a restaurant lately, you're right, Texas Dog. It's not uncommon to get a Coke or a Sprite or a Mountain Dew and have it cost $3.85, $4.50, something like that. Jay Chains also missed the first hour, but I'm listening at 1.5. I'll catch up soon. Historic Epic Battle says, LOL, gotta love boomers. Must be talking about the elderly who couldn't figure out the payment machine. Hey, I don't think we've met each other before, Historic Epic Battles. I probably would have remembered that username because I also enjoy Historic Epic Battles. Just watched some Mark Felton Presents yesterday or the day before. Bum, 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 bum. Jake T says, I never knew Mamas and Papas released a version of Spanish Harlem. Never know what you'll learn on a Dugroz live stream. Yeah, and I don't know if they were the original or a cover. I honestly don't know. Texas Dog says, 2 J Chains, good idea, but tough to do while shopping at HEB. That kind of population. Brian Jackson says, Vienna, nearly 2 million. All right, Brian, you get 500 Dugroz points. If somebody can come up with a city in the United States that has around 2 million people, that'll help us compare. You'll get points too. Mike's arrived from What's the Point? What's up? And Texas Dog says, hey. All right, let's keep going here. Back to my appropriately sized screen. Miscellaneous continued. So what does this weird AI-generated image represent? Well, we did, in fact, get dry cleaning at the Vienna Hilton. This is only the second time in my entire life I've done dry cleaning at a hotel. Let me tell you, my wife was impressed. She said something like, I know we don't normally have the money for it, but if I had money, this is something I would splurge for, because every shirt was like very clean, folded, pressed. I think, let's just get real, folks. She had to have a pair of underwear dry clean too. This was the phase where like our bags had not yet been returned. So first thing Sunday morning, we dropped off her clothes for dry cleaning under the hope and assumption that KLM would absorb that cost, because they just say any sort of reasonable charges. And we didn't know when our bags were going to be returned. In fact, they sent me an email that basically said, hey, if we're not able to return it to your hotel before you leave, what's your home address? So I'm like, we may not get these at all. So I think it's very reasonable to say, I've got like one outfit for my wife, one outfit for one of my boys, and a backup. They're wearing the backup. I think it's reasonable to get the other one dry cleaned. When I explained to the front desk what happened as a show of good faith, they actually gave us 50% off the dry cleaning. Now, we dropped off the dry cleaning at like 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, and then got my wife's bag at like 1:30. But again, we didn't have any way of knowing. It's not like there's a tracker with it. Now, Brian Jackson has told me I really need to get some Apple AirTags, and for any future international trips, I sure will. Regardless, $75 is how much that cost. Actually, I think it was 75 euros, and I just forgot to do the conversion. But let's just say $75, and that's half price. Normally it's $150, and that was like 2 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, 1 pair of underwear each, some socks, and it's like $12 for a t-shirt. I mean, dry cleaning is expensive. Paid myself back 6,000 points for that. It was at a Hilton, so that's why it coded as travel. I'm not counting it as Hilton because this really is an expense that has nothing to do with the hotel itself. It's just that I got it at a hotel. I just as easily could have gone to a dry cleaner 3 blocks away. KLM should reimburse me for this dry cleaning cost. And assuming they do, this will be a double dip. So basically a charge of $75, I pay myself back $75. KLM sends me a check for $75. And on a net basis, I can take that $75 and apply it to other things like the Great Orme Tram, like the Hilton shuttle bus that were not coded as travel. Well, let's talk about some failures. We talked about planes, trains, and automobiles failures. What are some things that did not code as travel that I wished had? Interestingly, I've got a couple other people that have either been to or are soon going to the United Kingdom that are fans of the channel. Flying Ryan, Ron B, and they've been corresponding with me about like what codes and what doesn't. It's kind of fun. It's fun to have people that like, are like super fans. Anything that was the United Kingdom National Trust did not code as travel. It coded as like government or historical agencies or something. So I've actually got 2 examples of it on this screen here. The Treasurer's House was like an old house from like the 1600s in York. And the bottom right picture is one of the tour guides explaining something there. Just lots of old paintings, vases, china, fancy furniture, kind of stuff my wife loves to look at. So that was a good activity for wife points. Clifford's Tower is this. It's I always get it mixed up, Motte and Bailey from a medieval castle. I don't know if this is the Motte or the Bailey. Is the tower the Motte or the Bailey? I think it's the Bailey. The Motte is the moat. Is that right? Basically, all of the castle has been torn down except for the Bailey. So Clifford's Tower, after it was done, another thing that was, built by the Norman invaders to keep those pesky Britons and Welsh away. Later on bought by a family with the last name Clifford, so they call it Clifford's Tower. We toured the inside of that, and that was also a National Trust property, did not code as travel. The Jorvik Viking Center, not pictured because it's all underground, the lighting was bad, but in York, York has a history of Viking stuff. In fact, if you're familiar with the Danelaw, actually a large portion of England in the north and east was ruled by Danish Vikings for about 150 to 200 years. And the word York in the Viking language is Jorvik or Jorvik. So they have a Viking Heritage Center there with like an underground train ride, like Disneyland style, like a slow motion roller coaster where you look at animatronics and mannequins dressed up as Vikings and stuff. My kids really like that. No pictures though. And then the York Minster. Minster is some sort of word for a fancy cathedral. Top right picture there. Was not part of the National Trust, probably part of the Church of England. Again, did not code as travel. It just coded as like religious organizations or something like that. So tried to pay myself back, but was not able to on those. Actually, one of the two, I don't remember which. I think with the Treasurer's House, I learned my lesson that National Trust doesn't code as travel. So by the time I got to Clifford's Tower, I just put it on my Venture X. So at least I was getting 2X. The aforementioned Conway Castle admission, even though the Conway Castle, the Conway Castle parking lot coded as travel at the little machine that the elderly had a hard time figuring out, the castle itself was privately run or run by like the Welsh's version of the National Trust, did not code as travel. And then the castle bathroom privileges. So I'm going to make a whole video, I think, about bathrooms in Europe, including the United Kingdom at some point in the future. When you get to the parking lot for the Conway Castle, there's like a little booth you can go in that's like a very small concession stand, a couple bathrooms, and like some literature and maps and those kind of things. Like, welcome to the castle. Although I think it's run by a private company, it's made to kind of, it's like tricky. It like looks like it's officially part of the castle tour. But if you want, and you have to walk like maybe an eighth of a mile, maybe a quarter mile to get from the parking lot to the castle. If you want to use the bathroom there, the one that's in that little booth in the parking lot, you have to pay for it. And it's like, I think 50 pence or 65 pence per adult. They don't charge minors, thankfully. So it's just a little over $1, like $1.50, something like that. But even the bathroom did not code as travel. It was just like miscellaneous services or something like that. I'm not quite ready for totals yet. Let me check my comments here. Catch up on those. David Williams said, I'd like to do a Dugroz style trip and visit Civil War battlefields. You know, that's a good idea for like something I could do for a living someday that merges my love of history with points and miles. Thank you for the suggestion, David. Remind me in about 7 to 10 years. Texas Dog says, I used to live in Oslo. Minimum wage was $20 back then, so my dry cleaner sent the clothes to Poland for dry cleaning. It took about a week. Oh, that's funny. Way to get around minimum wage laws. Chad Pennycuff says, AirTags for all travel. The U.S. airlines now support using them to help find your stuff. Yeah, KLM did too. Not that it's like a guarantee or anything, but it's like if you have an AirTag, I don't remember if you just wrote down where its last known location was or if there's like an actual, like, is there like a tracking code you can write down? But I didn't have one. Fargonaut says, if I paid for business class and got stuck in the back of the plane, I may not be pleased with my purchase. I paid for Comfort Plus and got put in the back of the plane. I think you're catching up on 1.5 speed, Fargonaut. Yes, so I actually need to give all of you an update. In last week's video, I said how I paid for seat upgrades to Comfort Plus on Delta. And I was kind of ticked off that they canceled the flight. They rebooked me. So they know that I didn't get the seat upgrades. I got put in the back of the plane. In fact, one of the flights, I was like second to last row. And I went in, filled out a requisition form. They refunded one of the 4. So I went and filled in a second requisition form. I'm like, look, jerks. I don't remember exactly how I worded it. I meant refund all 4. And sure enough, 4 or 5 business days later, I got the refund on the other 3. So I have been made whole. I was refunded. And that's actually something I could do and probably will do, not including the totals today. I can actually pay myself back on those Delta seat upgrades, which would be like $200. And I got reimbursed. So I can double dip and apply that to something else on the trip. If you do that a truckload, I think Aeroplan will get mad at you and might shut you down. But for $50 deposits, I don't think they would care. I mean, what if I had done pay myself back before I even took the flight? They wouldn't have known. Mike says, we use AirTags with all our bags to help fix an error when they used a bag transfer company through Hyatt in Japan. They delivered one our bag to the wrong Hyatt Regency in Tokyo, not Tokyo Bay. You guys have all convinced me. Brian also convinced me. Texas Dog says, I use several AirTags and sometimes an additional tag inside an important pouch inside the bag. I even have an AirTag hidden in my truck. Jesus Chris says W. I'm not sure what is W, but all of it, hopefully. Chad says, you can share a location of AirTag from a link generated in the Find My app. Airlines asked for that link. Oh, that makes sense. Ziza said, I got gifted and just now tuned in. Oh, okay, that was the W. That was probably Mike Newland. You can thank him. Texas says, to Chad, you're correct. I read a similar explanation on the points guy. So yeah, AirTags for the win. Or I suppose if you don't use Apple, you can use something like that. All right. Are you guys ready for some totals? Here we go. So adding it all together, by the way, the emphasis of this presentation is giving you the gist of it, not the exact totals. So if you see the breakdown video and I'm off by $50, don't be mad at me. I will get it to the penny when I do my final breakdown. All eligible pay yourself back items, we're talking the actual pay yourself back on Aeroplan, including the Hiltons, $3,574. All Venture X Travel Eraser eligible. Remember at the very beginning of the video said I did Travel Eraser for my Condor mishap, but I'm not going to go into details here. Those all come to $636. And then all US Bank Altitude Reserve real-time reward eligible redemptions comes to $157. And just for reference, that $157 includes $47 that I never actually used. I'll pause for a second and do a very brief story time here of what I mean by $47 that I never actually used. So this was on the very last Lyft ride, Lyft, Lyft ride on the way home. So the way Uber does it is they charge your Uber and your tip separately. But with Lyft, they just, assuming you make your tip in a timely manner, like within 24 hours, they just merge it all together into one transaction. So I put the $47 on the US Bank Altitude Reserve for my Lyft ride when I booked it. And then like got home 3 or 4 hours later, went to give the tip. And when I did the tip, there was a drop-down menu that defaulted to the same payment method, but I could change it. And I'm like, well, the tip is under $10, so it won't trigger real-time rewards. So I'll switch that over to the Aeroplan card so that the tip can go on the Aeroplan. And what happened is the entire trip went on my Aeroplan card. So I already did real-time rewards because you only have like 6 hours to do that when the pending charge comes in. The pending charge dropped off and the whole charge went on Aeroplan. So I've got $47 of real-time rewards that I can also pay myself back on. So I got to double dip there as well. Although I did it by accident, that could be an actual strategy when using Lyft rides. If you want to double dip, put the pending charge on the Altitude Reserve, and then when you're ready to pay the final bill, including the tip, put it on the Aeroplan charge. The pen will drop off the Altitude Reserve and only show up on your Aeroplan. So you can pay yourself back twice, kind of. Spaceco coming in strong, drops $5 for the Future AirTag Fund. Celebrate, celebrate. Thank you so much, Spaceco. I appreciate it. I enjoy all of your mathnasium math that you provide us with over on the Stack Your Points Discord. All right, so that's the totals. And then the grand total, in other words, how do things break out when I consider all the money that I spent? Blow my nose here. So on this vacation, United Kingdom and Austria, anything that we could not pay with directly with points. Obviously, you know, our business class flights on Lufthansa, that was booked through Aeroplan using points. Our Virgin flights were booked with Virgin points. The Hilton in Vienna was booked with Hilton points for the most part. The cottages.com cottage was booked with Wyndham points, but anything that was not booked directly with points. So this is all of the food, all of the transit, all of the lodging put directly on a credit card, all of the activities, taxes and fees for flights, all that stuff put together for the entire. No, I got this wrong here. I'm sorry. Okay, let's pretend that never happened. All right, there's all my pay myself back, travel eraser, and altitude reserve stuff. Adding the 3 credit card methods of erasing charges together comes to $4,340. Now, the entire trip total, everything that was not paid directly with points, like taxes and fees, activities, meals, I tracked everything. I went to the lobby and got a Gatorade. All those things put together came to $8,047. So then if we do the math, if I take $8,047 subtract out the $4,340 that I paid myself back on, travel erased, real-time rewards, the balance left to cover is $3,707. So a little over half. As a percentage, I was able to recover more than half of my travel expenses using these three cards combined. So if you're ever wondering why I preach the joy of 1.5 so much, it's because of this kind of stuff. Now, I don't want to put anyone down because everyone travels differently. And in many cases, there are content creators who would say something like, I'm fine to just pay the $8,000 out of pocket. And if you are, that's great. There's a handful of content creators out there who never talk about the $8,000 though. They talk about the points they used on Lufthansa. They talk about the points they use on Virgin. They talk about the Hilton points they use. They talk about the Wyndham points they use to cover cottages.com or other things like it. But let me tell you, taking a family of 4 on vacation to Europe for 11 days, not counting the travel days, it's expensive. It's $8,000. I was able to cover more than half of that with points indirectly through paying myself back. So now, where's that other $3,707 going to come from? Well, that's the $1 million question. Right now, I've got about $2,000, give or take, in my travel savings account. That's cash back from bank account bonuses I've already finished, raw cash back cards like the US Bank Cash Plus, like the Blue Cash Every Day from American Express, cash back credit card bonuses that were paid as cash back, those kind of things. $2,000. Well, that still leaves about $1,700. The other $1,700 is probably going to have to come from cashing out points. And I know some people are like personally offended when I talk about penny points, but if you're here watching this video, you have to at least be willing to think, well, he does it for a reason, even if I disagree with it. So, my personal rules, I got to get that $3,700 all the way down to zero. And I'm going to do that. It might take a little while. I do have like a $400 or $500 bank account bonus that should be coming in any day now. So that'll take the edge off a little bit, but I do have to cover that somehow. Hat tip to Ron Byrne, who made this graphic. I was joking in the Stack Your Points Discord how I should have a t-shirt that says 1.625 or something like that on it. So this is what his idea was. And again, just if you're wondering why I talk about 1.625 so much, it's the 1.3 you get if you have an Aeroplan card and get a 20% transfer bonus from Chase to Aeroplan. You pay yourself back at 1.25. So on a net basis, every single charge on this trip, because maybe not every single, but 95% of my points were transferred over from Chase, I'm wiping out those expenses at 1.625 cents per point. And I don't know about you, but I have to say 1.625 is a lot better than 1. Some people throw up the argument of like, well, why not just use a cash back card? Well, the cash back card would have to earn a whole lot better, because any cash back card, you know what rate you're cashing out at? 1 cent per point. So if you, let's say you have a card that earns 3x or 5x on gas and you cash that out, that's 1 cent per point. So your 5% back on $100 is $5. Whereas if, let's say I use the Freedom Flex when it's on a rotating category at gas and I earn 5 points, but then by the time I transfer over to Chase, 5 times 1.625 is, calculator please, 1.625 times 5 is 8.125. So 8.125 is more than 5. So it's still worth doing. Now, you do have to take the annual fee into consideration, your Aeroplan card. You can have a debate as to whether or not you take your Sapphire Preferred annual fee into consideration or not. I have a lot of Chase cards anyway, so I would have them whether or not they had the Aeroplan card. So hopefully today's presentation gave you some ideas why I'm able to justify using the Aeroplan card and the US Bank Altitude Reserve so much in these kind of situations for things that are a little bit tougher to cover with points and miles most of the time. Whew, and that concludes the main event. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's see here. Historic Epic Battle says, wow, that Aeroplan total is tempting to make it my number 5 on 524. It should be tempting. Depends on your travel style. If you're more like Rewards Master and you just want to, you're like, I've got the $8,000 for an epic family vacation, I'm just going to pay that out of pocket. Great. I'm not in that situation. Chad says, to Texas Dog, I have a cigarette to USB adapter that also has Find My integration for the car. Oh, that's cool. What's the Points says, so when Chase will finally give me the new cards again, I think the Aeroplan card is first on my list. Is there a consensus on how many points will be transferred to Air Canada for pay yourself back from either Chase or Amex? On Chase, it's unlimited how many you can transfer over. To get the extra 10% bonus for holding the card, it's either 200,000 or $250,000 per year, one of the two. Also, bear in mind when it comes to redemptions, you can only pay yourself back on travel a maximum of 200,000 points per year. You can also use points to cover the annual fee, which is worth doing if your alternative was to cash out penny points. So if you were hypothetically maximizing it every year, you would want to wait until there's a 20% transfer bonus from Chase to Aeroplan and get a little more than 200,000 over there. Not in terms of how much you send, but how much you end up with. Now, they say only points transferred from Chase or points earned on the Aeroplan card or points earned at Aeroplan itself are eligible for pay yourself back. If you use points transferred over from Amex or Capital One to Aeroplan and then use those to pay yourself back, you get in big trouble. That's what they say. Having said that, points just go into a big pot. So it's really hard to say, what am I using the Capital One points on versus what am I using the Choice points on? For example, when I booked Lufthansa for our return trip, I moved points in from both Amex and Capital One to pay for that. But it's not like, between the time I transferred them in and made the redemption, it's like, now I want this to only come from the points that came from Amex and Capital One. I want to leave behind the Chase points. It's just one big pot. Now, I think if you were doing, let's say you never transferred in Chase points and you only transferred in Amex points and redeemed the full 200,000 a year, they might smack you down or close your card. If it was like 10,000 points from Amex every year, I don't think there'd be any way of checking on that. Texas wants the name of the cigarette lighter that integrates with Find My. Rodrigo says, if you transferred Amex points to Aeroplan, how does the Aeroplan tell them apart from Chase points used for PYB? I think we just answered that. Thanks for reading my mind, Rodrigo. And Mike says, have you looked at the Amex business plat for all the 1.54 cents per point for booking domestic econ on your selected airline? I have. Obviously, the annual fee on the business platinum is much higher than the Aeroplan card. We're talking $700 versus $100. So big difference there. Right now, I do have that. The drawback is like you can only use it on airfare and only on your selected airline. And living in Des Moines, Iowa, which is a non-hub airport, little regional airport, I don't really have an airline loyalty. It's just sort of whatever's good. So like I flew Delta to get to New York City. I flew American back from New York City. When I went to New Orleans last year, I flew down on Delta. I flew back on United. I've flown Southwest to Las Vegas and back the year before. I've flown Southwest to St. Louis twice. So yeah, it's all kind of evenly distributed. I've even flown Allegiant a few times. So that's why it's not as good of a fit. Whereas with Aeroplan, any airline, any hotel, any transit, as long as it codes as travel. Counter Everything says, I can't decide if I should try to sneak a second Chase business card in before I go 5524 for the Aeroplan card on this bonus. Unless your credit score is like under 700, I would say, yeah, shoot your shot. Go for it. Boy, I'm behind schedule here. I apologize. Chad says, RIP Aeroplan travel hack to pay off DVC loans. LOL. Yeah, and what he means is that 200,000 per year cap causes problems if you're using Aeroplan to pay off loans. That was an awesome deal for about a year and a half? All right, I don't need to take a bathroom break today. I'm going to transition over to the community tab questions right away here. and try to get to all of them because I am very much behind schedule. In fact, I apologize to anybody that left a question. If you could repeat that, I would really appreciate it. I'm only going to talk about the picture of the day. So it was, hold on, I got to load it here. It was this picture right here. And I kind of gave away the lead already by talking about the Great Orme Tram. But the person who guessed it correctly first was Flyin' Ryan. He said, you went to see the summit of Great Orme in Llyndido, North Wales. Let's just call it Lalando. You went to see the summit of Great Orme in Lalando, North Wales. A bonus guess, since it was too easy, is the Victoria Station. And yes, he's exactly right. This was at the Victoria Station. So 7,000 Dugroz points for you, Ryan. Good guess. That was awesome. Ron Byrne also made a guess that was like some sort of funicular. Okay, I'll give 1,000 points for that. Let's see. Can I play a movie here just so you can see what it's like? I can. I just have to open it and do it all skillfully and stuff. This is going to remind you of like a Rice-A-Roni ad back when they used to have the Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat. Ding, ding. Oh, I shared the wrong thing. Sorry, I've got such lame footage here. I keep trying to share my screen of the thing I want to share, and I keep hitting the wrong button here. All right. Share screen, Windows. There it is. Okay, sorry about that, folks. All right, let's all watch the video together. Apparently there's no audio here, so this is just, the funicular, the Great Orme Tram. It actually starts in town, and Flyin' Ryan got it right, at Victoria Station. So much for trying to not put my kids on video if I don't get their permission. I didn't know they were in this. But yeah, basically it's just like a little tram pulled by a cable. The cable's underground, which is why you can't see it. Going up a hill there, San Francisco style. So that's what it is. In terms of other pictures here, let's share my screen in a different way here. Share screen. That's my wife looking out the window of the tram. This was really cool. This was, up until I saw the Fairy Falls waterfall, this was the favorite thing I'd done on the trip. This is me on the top of the Great Orme Mountain. It's not really the tippity top. I didn't go all the way to the top. Like I said, you could drive about a third of the way up to that rural parking lot where I got a fine, and then we walked about another third of the way up. So I'm probably about 2/3 of the way up, and for my 45-year-old, 46-year-old, whatever I am, dad bod, that was plenty. They do have this little building at the top with like a gift shop and some stuff that's really cool. My kids did actually go all the way to the tippy top of the Great Orme, so they got to see it. And then, or actually, this wasn't the top of the whole thing. This was the top of the part that you can easily walk to. And then there's another section that the train goes up to that's even higher. So this is like the top of one of the peaks. The tram went up to the top of the tippity top peak. All right. Sorry, I ended with kind of a dud there of explaining things poorly, but thank you. I really appreciate it. Everyone who contributed today. Let's see. What's the points? How are you earning enough chase points for all this? It's a combination of hacking the 5x on the rotating categories on the Freedom and Freedom Flex and sign-up bonuses. Epic History Battle says, does anyone have a 200K Amex Biz Gold referral link they can share? I do not. Luke says, I will watch the replay. I just got back from Pittsburgh. Brother, ew. Ew, what's that, brother? And Luke is in the house, says Mike. Let's review who contributed today, and then we'll be all done. So John came in with his $2 Steady Eddie gift. Robert J. threw in $1.99. Xavier celebrated 11 months of membership and dropped a $9.99 super chat. QC Man celebrated 16 months and dropped a $1.99 super chat. Rex dropped a $1.99 super chat. Tim Thompson dropped $9.99. Filmo's been a member for 20 months. Juan Garcia gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. FC donated $4.99. Nuracan donated $1.99. Mike Newland donated 20 memberships, making us all look bad, as Ian pointed out when he donated $4.99. Texas Dog donated $4.99. Spathco donated $5. Thank you, everyone. And Rodrigo says, I don't know, brother. Them Chase Ink Train subs are drying up, it sounds like. Yeah, may not be as easy as it once was. I'm going to throw out a flyer on another ink card. The $30,000 of spend on the new Chase Ink Sapphire is not going to be it. So it's going to have to be an Ink Unlimited or an Ink Cash. And I don't know if they'll approve me since I've already had all 3 of the big ones or all 3 of the other ones. But I'm going to give it a try. There's no harm in trying, right? And if Chase dries up someday, oh well, we move on to another strategy. Thank you, everyone who was here and everyone who contributed. I really appreciate it. And as always, may your spending be frugal and may your points be plenteous. Thanks.